So, hello guys, welcome to our tier list. We're going to go through every single legendary lord in Total Warhammer 2 and place them based on how good their campaign is. This is going to be a combination of how easy they are to play, how good their start position is, how much they add to their faction, and how strong their faction is in general. Just kind of a general, should you go and play this faction?
Also, how fun they are. Hello, I'm here too. It's also me.
Yes, how fun they are is definitely part of that. There might be a few campaigns near the top in S tier that are, trivially easy, but those campaigns do tend to be fun. Even if they're a bit of a stomp, they're not necessarily taxing. So we're not taking points away if your campaign is too easy. I think that's worth mentioning.
We'll probably mention it.
Yes.
Alright, so we're starting at the bottom because we're Mavericks and we can't be tamed.
That's true.
So the first six I think are really easy. So we've got Sigvald, who's the worst of the Chaos Lords.
Yeah,
who are the
worst
worst
of the Chaos
faction.
Lords. Offers very little as a hero, as a lord, offers very little as a faction leader, buffs the wrong units, all the classic hallmarks of a bad lord in a bad faction.
Doesn't he buff Marauders in a faction that isn't even the Marauder faction?
They should quickly transition out of Marauders into better units, yes.
Just find that interesting.
Sigvald is one of the few lords I've never actually played even a little bit of, because I think he is just strictly worse than the other Chaos Lords with the same start location. So there is, to me, no reason to want to play him. We are talking about Mortal Empires here, in case anyone... We don't have anything to say about either Vortex. So.
Not yet. Maybe one day, but not today.
Yeah.
Cool, we've got big Dragon Angry Boy, Chaos Lord, so he's probably loitering around here.
Yeah, I think...
He's the best of the Chaos Lords, right?
Certainly before Archaon's recent buffs, I would say he was easily the best of the Chaos Lords.
Oh, okay. Rivals.
But... And he probably still is, just his individual... As a character, like as a unit, he's obviously way stronger than Archaon. He can solo early sieges on his own. He definitely lets you get the ball rolling, which is what Chaos really needs. So he probably is still the best Chaos Lord. Archaon's new buffs give you a better end game, but Chaos end game's kind of okay anyway. I would say he probably is probably D tier. Chaos is still a really difficult and not enjoyable faction to play, particularly.
They are so rubbish to play. They're not good at all.
Yeah.
But I think he's got a fun Doom stack. He's got a fun Shaggoth Doom stack as well.
Yeah,
which I think's cool.
The Shaggoth Doom stack is definitely one of the better Doom stacks. It's really very few things can handle how powerful it is. They don't have access to Law of Life, so it's not even the best Doom stack by any means.
But it is cool.
I think it has to be D for him.
I mean, he could be F. He could be.
No. I think he's
fractionally better. So okay.
I think F is
straight trash.
Why are you playing this? It's just a terrible time. Whereas D is, if you want to play Chaos, you can play the D tier. Yeah. And for that reason, I think I also want to put Archaon in D. I think Archaon is an acceptable Chaos leader. I think F should be relatively exclusive, and I think Archaon is going to be probably the lowest. He might even be the lowest in D. But do you not think
that Archaon's cloak is too square in that cutscene? Because it really bothers me how square his cloak is.
I do not have strong strategic opinions.
Okay, well, that is a real negative for me. So he would probably be S tier if it wasn't for that cloak, in my opinion. Also, where's his dragon? For fuck's sake!
He didn't have it until the end time.
I know, but the dragon makes him just. It feels appropriate for the bringer of the end times to not be riding a small horse. I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway, so we're going on to the best faction in the game. I don't even know which one this is. I think this is Morg. This is Malagor. This is Morga. This is Morga.
Yeah. Morgor is the worst of the Beastmen lords and probably the worst leader in the game.
Nice.
He makes Minotaurs, who are one of your better units,
bad.
More expensive, and buffs Chaos Spawn, who are not one of your better units.
That makes them bad still. Still not good.
One of Morga's traits is that he only remains wounded for one turn, but why is you're a horde faction? Why is your lord died? Jesus Christ! So Morga is exceptionally
Where's
bad.
his start location?
Nordland, which now there's wood elves around there is probably just hell. I will say again, I haven't played any of the Beastmen factions ever.
But I have.
But I do know enough about them to say
and
something.
It was a rough time.
Malagor,
now
is worst in the game.
Malagor, they're now immune to attrition.
Well, not quite. Malagor is the best of the Beastmen, but probably still below single. Malagor has a few things going for him. His faction effects are both quite powerful, plus 10% movement range and plus growth, both really, really useful. His start location is okay. The Orcs rework hasn't helped. But certainly now that he doesn't take attrition on turn 1 as of the latest patch, that helps. Start units, sort of like starting with a giant, will also get you going at least. Yeah.
The most flavourful of the Beastmen Lords, I think. Mr. One-Eye.
Sure. He is the most, he's fine. He doesn't...
He's so boring. Like, when I was playing... So I played him when I was testing around Beastmen, I think, when the quarantine all started, March time.
Sure.
And his campaign... He starts near Skaven, so he can't head towards Skaven White because he'll die. So he has to head towards Bretonnia, where he'll die. And the Beastmen Lords, legendary Lords, have so few different abilities to like a regular Beast Lord. It's almost insulting. It's like 3 extra abilities. It's just like, why have you done this?
Yes, Beastmen don't hold up. They're all going to occupy these bottom 3 slots. Yeah. I do think the order should be Malagor at the top. Malagor, I should also say, has one of the better Doom stacks in the game. Might actually probably the best one, where he has the morale debuff.
Yes.
Doom stack, because both he gives -8 leadership to enemy units, and so do Bray Shamans, and you can stack that so that the enemy, as soon as they enter combat, break. So you never even have to, meet the enemy at all. The only issue you'll ever have is with unbreakable units, and there aren't that many of those.
Quite funny.
Yes, that's certainly. It's also a Doom stack that takes 100+ turns to get.
Yeah, surely, right?
Heroes. So worth mentioning. It's certainly part of the reason Malagor is the best of those lords, but no.
He's also the most interesting because he's a wizard lord, and beast lords are so generic. And
he's Lord of Beasts, right?
Yeah, but he's still a wizard.
Sure.
But he's also a beast man. He's got wings that you can't use. It's just good stuff.
Yeah.
So we've got some new lords. Got Drycha.
Yeah.
I like Drycha. I'm into.
I think Drycha is the second best of these wood elves, not necessarily in terms of power, but she offers a very unique playstyle compared to the other wood elves. You're using a bunch of unique units, and you're not just building Waystalkers all the time.
You've got scrap upgrades, level 3 tree men, which are fun.
Yeah, you can get tree men, malevolent tree men even at tier 3.
Oh, you fight vampires quite early on, which is unique for wood elves, which is fun. Yeah,
it's definitely a strong and interesting wood elf start. Overall, I think her faction is probably slightly weaker than a default wood elf faction, which is a little sad. But I think that her unique mechanics and kind of start location that you're all wood elf, so it doesn't really matter. All pretty fun. I think B is about right. I will admit we haven't experimented too much with how brutal the wood elf economy is in this current patch. It wasn't that bad in our multiplayer game, though that might have been because of a multiplayer bug.
But we don't know.
If the wood elf campaign is as bad as we have heard, she might be down a full tier. All the wood elves might go down a full tier, but I'll put her in B and be relatively happy.
Yeah, we can always change them at the end if we feel like we need to shift them about.
Yeah.
Because there's still so many lords to go, Matthew. Look at them. So many.
Yeah.
Sisters of Twilight.
I think these are the best of the wood elf factions. The Forge of Death is not the most powerful thing ever. And it's not that much fun. But Hawk Riders are really, really fun. It's certainly my experience. And her start location is relatively defensible and can go in some different directions. Your relationship with the Lithanar can vary, whether you want to actually push out against the Dark Elves or just secure up your borders, but you want to take out Katep early. There's a bunch of interesting things that can go before you start world hopping, tree hopping even.
So what do you think?
The faction effect of plus 10% ammo and volley of cannonballs, Hawk Riders is a really powerful faction effect. best of the Wood Elves, I think I'm willing to put her in A.
Ooh, big talk. Here she comes.
Yeah, I think I'm happy with that.
Okay, well, now there's big boy Angry Dirthy.
Yeah. Dirthy, I really enjoyed Dirthy's start location. Grabbing the Peaks of Paravon on like turn 2 or 3 is fantastic. I love the Peaks of Paravon. Obviously, you'd rather have it as the sisters because Hawk Riders, but you can confederate them at some point. I mean, like start location, his faction effects are pretty crap. Plus 10 melee attack during forest battles is just nothing.
It's so powerful. What if you fight every battle in a forest?
He is also like he's a very powerful melee lord and a caster. He's got a lot going for him as an individual lord.
Yeah, solid.
I think I'll put him below Dryker, but still in beta.
Yeah, that's fair. I'd put him there too, I think. Also, orange or purple, you get to choose your favourite, and then basically campaign around that if you like.
Yeah.
Orion.
Orion is definitely the worst of the Wood Elves by like a huge margin.
Yeah, I agree.
He as a lord, he buffs Wild Riders, which is not a unique.
If you've watched our campaign, you can see that Wild Riders haven't been very good.
And his faction mechanic of the Wild Hunt is not particularly good either. So yeah, he really isn't adding anything at all to the Wood Elves as a lord. As an individual, he's kind of a caster. He doesn't actually use Winds of Magic, but has some bound spells. And he's an okay archer. Yeah, he's okay. He can hold his own for sure.
C, D.
I think I would put him in C. Again, this is based on what I've heard of the Wood Elf economy more than what I've seen of the Wood Elf economy. If the Wood Elf economy is actually as good as it felt when I was playing, I would probably put him in B. But I'm going to put him in C and be relatively okay with that.
Okay. Well, that's the Wood Elves. Cool. Good job, faction leader. Always good when you're the worst lord. Onto Bretonnia. And we start with Rapunzel. Who is the...
Rapunzel, I think, is not one of the stronger Bretonnian lords. I just think
in terms
that
of
she is...
her physical abilities.
In terms of her faction effects as well.
Sure.
Just through Public Order is a relatively strong faction ability, but Leon Kerr gets that from his unique weapons, so that doesn't matter that much. Minus 50% upkeep from heroes is good, but doesn't come in for a while. And she buffs questing knights, which is quite strong, but the minus diplomatic relations really hurts. Like, your start is difficult. Everyone hates you. The reason you're playing Rapunzel over the other Bretonnian lord, the only reason to choose her is the unique start location. Yeah. Rather than immediately confederating your neighbours and having a very, very peaceful start, as certainly in Total War terms. You're immediately beset on all sides by enemies. You have the small Bretonnian factions who you eventually assimilate, but that doesn't take very long at all. And then you're having this, if you're basically at war with everyone around you at all times.
Rapunzel, you mean? Yeah.
Yes, Rapunzel.
Yeah. I've seen like a lot of battles where she's got some serious kill counts though. Like.
Yeah, as an individual, like in combat lord.
Yeah, and she comes with her cool paladin friend.
Her unique hero.
Yeah,
is pretty fun.
I do like unique heroes. I think the start location is really interesting as well. Like Bretonnia in the desert is cool.
I would probably play Rapunzel over Bordeaux, or certainly over Bordeaux.
Yeah, definitely over Bordeaux.
Probably, if I'm going like the issue. We're probably going to have this come up a few times during this list, is that she's one of those things that I would not recommend for the first time playing Bretonnia. If you play Bretonnia and enjoyed it and want something a bit different, I'd pick up Rapunzel. And I think there are going to be quite a few lords who fall into that category where if you're playing this faction for the first time, don't start with this one. But once you're familiar with the faction, give this a go. Okay. And I think that's probably a B tier.
Yeah, I'd say she's B tier. That seems fair.
I think I have her above Dirthy but below Dryker, but I won't worry too much.
We'll worry about that at the end. We'll shuffle them into place at the end. We'll just put them in their tiers for now, and we'll
keep them in order within factions. But we'll worry about cool.
So
next we have
Enchantress.
So the important thing to talk about the Enchantress is if she was any other faction, her faction effect would be so bad you wouldn't care and you'd never pick her. But as is, Bretonnians do not get replenishment from anything. It's better than it used to be with the Rapunzel update. It helped a little bit, but they really, really struggle with replenishment. And I think the faction effect plus 15% on the Enchantress is actually crazy.
It's quite a lot.
Like Luen is obviously a better individual and his start location is stronger, but given how easy it is to confederate and assimilate all of the Bretonians anyway, having the strongest faction effect is probably the decider. And at that point, the Enchantress has it fucking nailed. Start location is a little trickier. Clan Scry is a nightmare to deal with.
She's got Clan Scry, she's got the Elves.
But you're Bretonnia, so the start location is never that difficult.
Yeah.
Just get on, just do your research and get confederations.
Oh, she's got Orcs now to her north. They didn't used to exist.
Cool, that's someone to fight. That's a source of experience more than it's a source of pressure, I imagine.
Well, those Orcs are obsessed with killing the Empire, so I imagine they never bother you.
Obsessed with killing the player. I think the Fae Enchantress is the strongest Bretonnian lord.
Strongest Bretonnian lord. Take that, Leon Leonker.
And I think Bretonnia as a faction, the strongest Bretonnian lord puts them in A tier. No supply lines and a relatively peaceful, safe start that snowballs quite quickly. I think that's a solid A.
Fair enough. Good times for the Fae Enchantress. Also, the best lord to farm.
Yeah, I'm saying yes. That's rarely a problem for. I think there's a chance she's S, given how strong Bretonnia is.
We can have a look at it at the end. Like these, these aren't set in stone.
Sure.
Until the end, then they are set in stone, and no one can argue with them.
Alberic de Bordelot.
I have a fancy trident. That is my faction effect. Tridents. Why do I
exist? His actual
exist?
faction effect is -1 recruitment turn for knights, which is relevant. Quite a lot of knights recruit in 1 turn anyway, but certainly being able to faster recruit the better knights is useful. However, the problems he has, his start location is the worst of the Bretonnian lords. His faction effect is the worst of the Bretonnian lords.
And he's got a trident, which makes him
he
bad.
as an individual is pretty bad. Like, he's not a caster, nor does he get a good mount. So
he's got a horse,
I think he,
right? His horse is max mount?
Yeah. He might get a Pegasus.
No one ever played him long enough to find out. That's the problem.
Let's
quickly Google.
check that. Yeah, it's worth getting this correct. As far as I can tell, he only gets a horse.
Oh, sad times.
Based on very rapid Google.
Because he is Bretonnia, he's not unplayable by any means, and he will like confederate the whole place with the text.
Well, he does get a hippogriff.
He does get a hippogriff. Okay.
That helps, but it's not a unique hippogriff like
Leon.
He's Bretonnian. The I would say I might put him in D tier, not because you shouldn't play him. Not like, I don't think he's as bad as the Chaos starts, definitely. But though his start is hard, you have to go invade Ulthuan, and that's like not easy at all.
They've got to kill some orcs on their island now. They're basically crippled. Like,
you're invading Cathedra rather than Toya Vrest.
I know. I'm just
also assaulting Toya Vrest early. Oh my god!
Just kill Alfari and it's fine.
Jesus. I'm going to put him in D tier because I think.
Why don't you sail?
If you're playing Bretonians, you'll get a very similar play experience from the other, from the Fae Enchantress and Luen, but.
I mean, the Fae Enchantress start position is literally one province south.
Yeah, exactly. You start in
so close.
ludicrously similar position. Your campaign will play out in roughly the same way, but you're just doing it worse, and there's nothing unique to draw you in.
If you no. If you're team yellow and blue rather than red and blue, then Alberic's your guy. But
I'm going to put him in D tier and feel pretty okay with that. He also has by far the worst starting units of any of these factions, like by a huge margin.
Trident men, yes.
I
don't know what are his starting units. I don't remember.
He gets Knights of the Realm, Knights Errant, and Foot Squires.
That sounds so
compared
boring.
To the Fae Enchantress's Blessed Field Trebuchet, Grail Guardians, and Battle Pilgrims. Yeah, Grail Guardians and Blessed Field Trebuchet will carry you for a long time. Whereas Foot Squires aren't very good.
All right. Okay.
Yeah, it's fine. I don't want my... Yeah.
Lorne Leoncoeur.
So, faction effects. Lorne has the same thing that all the Game 1 prime faction leaders have as a faction effect, which is 10% movement range.
And a fancy moustache.
That's
compulsory for Game 1.
He really has very little else going for him faction-wise. His start location is strong. It's probably the strongest of the Bretonians. You get to take Marienburg very, very early, though that is not trivial.
No, that is definitely a task.
But
you also get to kill the orcs, or you can like fight some Norsemen if you really want to.
Yeah, it's definitely doable. Sometimes you do start at war with Wulfric, and that can be frustrating, but the Quran garrison is great, so that should be fine. And you are able to take Marienburg on the first few turns, certainly if you make the right decisions right at the start.
Quran's a good city as well.
Pardon?
Quran's a good city as well.
Yes, absolutely. It's a really good city. It's got pottery in it. It's the strongest of all resources.
Ardolf also has pottery in it, and that is one of the best cities too. So I'm sensing a theme.
Yes, so you can have a relatively strong start. The Empire like you, so you're definitely not surrounded on all sides. If anything, you struggle to find people to fight.
I think you've got
I imagine that's probably better than it used to be, given that Marienburg's territory is larger, and now that you can fight both the orcs and the wood elves up there, and that's probably enough enemies to fight that by the time you've dealt with them, you're confederating Bretonnia.
I think you start with a non-aggression pact with the Empire as well.
Sure.
I think it's straight up. You're like encouraged to not fight them.
Sure.
Which can be a problem if like they take some cities that you want, which they definitely could. Yeah. But it's not a huge deal.
No. And yeah, so I think start faction effects, underwhelming. Start location, excellent.
He's a cool lord.
He is certainly very, in terms of it, like as an individual lord, he's by far the strongest. Like the lady is a wizard and has a really powerful damage over time area effect that's especially good against chaff infantry, but
she looks very silly when she floats. So
like Llewyn has almost Manfred levels of regeneration by the time he's fully kitted out, and his legendary items are really, really strong. He's definitely a lord that I want to confederate really badly, but Bretonnia it's very easy to do.
Yeah.
So
where do we think? Where do you go?
So where do I put him? I think I have him just below Fae Enchantress. I think although her faction effects are much stronger, but long term his start location is stronger, so he can get going, and that can be more important. You'd say either of those are valid,
I'd
good
agree.
choices.
Yeah, they're both solid. I can't critique, I think, anyone for choosing either of those two. I feel like if you were newer to the game, you'd probably start with Leon Kerr, because he is slightly simpler without the magic. Because I've been playing the game for years, and I still forget that spells exist.
Yeah.
But maybe that's just me.
Law of Life is one of the easy ones to do. At least you don't have to aim.
You have to aim dwellers below, Matt. Come on, they're important. All right, Throg, big old troll monster.
Throg has the really. Throg is not good. I'm gonna put that out there. I think compared to, I think he's got to be a D tier in this classic. I don't know why you would choose to play Throg over Wulfric, basically ever. His faction effects make trolls tankier and cheaper, but you shouldn't build trolls. They're terrible.
They got buffed,
Stop doing it.
Right? With the Orc and Goblin release?
Not Norse controls.
Oh, they didn't bother with doing all the trolls. Okay, my bad.
No.
I shouldn't have done all the trolls.
No.
Why would they do that?
He's not even a stronger lord. He's stronger right at the start, because he's a troll. Yeah, but he doesn't get. Once Wulfric's on his mammoths are stronger. His start location's worse. It's much harder for him to do the Norscan snowball.
Which is the most fun part of Norskins.
I think it is a quite fun thing to. The most fun part of Norskins is the hunts, but
sure. I do like the snowball though. Snowball is cool.
Yeah, the snowball is definitely it's a little samey. That's always my complaint.
Yeah.
But I do think it's really fun. So yeah, I think Throg suffers from the problem of he has non-existent faction effects, and his start location is kind of bad. So I don't know why you would ever choose to play him over Wulfric. Wulfric is happy to confederate him. He's a strong individual lord,
and it's so easy for Wulfric to do that because of you beat him in battle, you get him.
Yeah, exactly.
It's hard for him to die before Wulfric gets him. Almost impossible, probably, unless you were playing for it to happen. I feel like if you're playing naturally, you would just naturally acquire him as you're going across the Norscan lands.
Yeah.
So, speaking of Wulfric and his snowball,
I'm probably putting him in high B rather than A.
I think that's fair. The Norscan roster isn't super interesting.
Yeah, I think Wulfric as a lord is strong. He gives his entire army fear. That's very strong.
That's pretty good.
The Mammoth Doomstack is obscenely good, and he even has buffs for mammoths. So, like that, if Wulfric's leading it, that army is just unstoppable.
Comes with a boat.
He does have a boat ban spell eventually. The start is interesting. It's well worth playing an Norsca campaign because it does play quite differently to a lot of other campaigns. Make sure you get around to finishing the game though. A long drawn out, like trying to conquer the world as Norscans would be miserable because you can't hold non-coastal, non-capital settlements, and but it's not meant to be. Once you've beaten chaos, you get 90% reduced upkeep for all units or whatever, and that's then it's a cakewalk. So I think Wolfric's really fun. Do I think it's one of the stronger campaigns? No. Norscans struggle a lot with public order. They struggle a lot with they can't hold settlements outside of the Norscan territory, which is not that much. Their money situation their economy is like one of the weaker factions.
Which makes
raiding
sense.
Economies in general are not that strong.
Yeah.
I think
Before it sounds right though.
I am very happy with Wulfric as a lord and as a leader for Norsca, but Norsca as a whole unfortunately restricts him to the beta.
I think Wulfric's completely fine. I think Norscans are fine. I think if they never ever updated Norscans, I think it would be fine.
Yeah.
With this, they are free DLC, aren't they? Now.
I believe so.
Cool.
I got it as a pre-order bonus. I certainly don't.
Yeah, fair enough. All right, so we have the best vampire lord. My opinion.
Oh, interesting.
Not in combat stats, but in campaign, I think he's my favorite.
I'm not certain. His main appeal is that the other four lords will start in the same place.
Yeah, that's horrible. It's the worst.
It's only the worst once you've done that start. Like, I think, I don't want to play Vlad or Isabella after I've played Manfred because it's very, very similar.
Yeah.
The main appeal of Kemmler is he starts somewhere else. Is he actually good as a leader? His faction effects don't exist. Plus 30 diplomatic relations with Chaos. What?
Very useful.
You can't. What?
So S tier then for that buff alone. There you go.
Krell is a relatively cool.
Krell is cool. I like Krell.
Thing going on, and he's got reduced upkeep and recruit rank for necromancers, and necromancers are very strong heroes. You do want to recruit all your necromancers. Don't get me wrong. And the start location is not trivial. Like fighting Bretonnians,
Dwarves.
Bretonnians and Dwarves is relatively challenging for most of the vampire roster, though you start with a unit of Hexwraiths and a unit of Cairnwraiths who do chop through those guys like they were butter. So your start's not too challenging. It's unique. You do have a nearby ally in the Red Duke, so comparing him can prove a challenge.
That's true of vampires generally, though.
And your starting settlement has a unique building that's very strong. I think he is in the response category of.
Okay.
I want to play Kemmler, probably not as my first experience with a faction. I don't think he's the strongest version of this faction. I don't think he's the most unique version of this faction. But he's a good. I've played vampires and now I want to play them again, but have it be different. Kemmler's the one I go to.
Okay, I'm assuming that's a Wulfric style.
Yeah, I think that's a big.
Okay.
I think the vampire counts are very strong. Pretty strong as a faction, so happy that would be.
They've got some real cheese, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Isabella von Castein.
Isabella's definitely better than Vlad. That's the first
Sorry,
thing
Vlad.
mentioning. Vlad, I think, is going to suffer the D tier fate of I don't know why you would pick Vlad over Isabella.
I mean, I guess you could, but why?
He's got a few things good going for him, but the fact that Isabella can recruit Vlad as a lord on turn 2,
pretty good.
And her faction effects are way better because she starts with 3 vampires and plus 3 hero capacity with vampires. The vampire heroes are very good.
Yeah,
So do that.
I've said this before, but like Isabella being her own lord just doesn't feel like right. She was like a hero in like the game when they were like a thing, but like obviously they didn't have legendary heroes in the first game, but she fits. I feel she fills a much better legendary hero slot.
Yes,
but that's unfortunately not what she is currently. So
I think the other issue with Isabella is that compared to Manfred and Gorst, the von Karstein start is much more difficult than the Sylvania start. You don't have Drakenhof. You really want Drakenhof,
but it's
and that either means
vampires.
That either means beelining for it, like assaulting it turn 2, turn 3, which means that you probably will never get to confederate Manfred and Helmengorst, which is sad. Obviously, you want to collect the lords, especially Manfred, who's very, very powerful. Or you never get it, and like 70 turns in, you hope that confederation works, but you're an evil aligned faction, so it's a nightmare. It's pretty miserable. I don't particularly enjoy the von Karstein start.
Do you think it's D for both?
No, I don't think she's a D. I think
she's a C then.
I think
just put flat
she's not offering anything especially unique to the faction either. Like, Plastic Vampires is cool, but it's not go do something very different. But I think it's she's solid. If you want a more challenging vampire campaign, I'd recommend Isabella.
Oh, there she is. So Vlad, you would say basically just a worse version of Isabella.
Vlad's only faction effective plus 10% movement range, which is nothing.
Hooray.
His start units are way stronger than Isabella's, but that's because she gets 3 vampire heroes, which
are pretty good.
Will become much stronger than his starting units. Yeah, Vlad is D. I don't know why you'd ever play him over Isabella.
Sorry, Vlad. It's almost like you died that time in Saladin Ardolf in the story, and you shouldn't be in this game because you died like 400 years ago.
Yeah.
So obviously everyone's favourite choice for Vampire Lord because he's so lore rich. I love all his lore. I love how it exists.
Gorst might
he's decent.
Be better than Manfred.
Do you think he's better than Manfred? Because I remember like we were talking about this like a year ago, and you were like,
his faction effects are significantly stronger.
Huh.
Plus 20% casualty replenish rate and plus 20% research rate are very, very strong. He also gives all corpse carts and mortis engines the ability to summon a unit of zombies. That's really strong.
That's pretty good.
Corpse carts and mortis engines aren't the backbone of a vampire army, but
you'll have some mortis engines around.
Usually you want your necromancers on corpse carts, and I believe this spell affects them. So, as a lord, he's pretty garbage. Armor for zombie units doesn't make a huge difference, and poison for his army doesn't do a huge
That's how I've been playing vampires. Is that wrong?
He's fundamentally a necromancer, whereas Manfred can solo armies on his own. But as Gorst, it's not that difficult to recruit Manfred, and given the more powerful faction effects, I personally enjoy Gorst more.
Okay, it's a bold start. I love it.
I think, given the similarities of their start, they start at the same location with fairly similar armies. Although Manfred starts with a Vargulf, which is a huge boon. Given that it's a siege attacker, that's definitely something that
important.
Helmengorst is lacking. I think both of them. I'm going to put them both in the same tier, and I think that tier is A.
Okay, that's fair. That seems correct for the old Manfred.
I think the Vampire Counts are a relatively strong faction. Your start location is quite strong. Though it's probably better than it used to be now that there's Skaven and Zufbar. Like, that dwarf faction is no longer unassailably strong.
That's a bit more interesting,
right? I don't know how much difference Striker will make to your campaign, but that's interesting too.
Striker is more aggressive with her lords. Like, she will go out of her lands and attack stuff. So maybe she'll attack you.
I think
she does think you suck. So
I think if you're going to play Vampire Council the first time, it should be as the Sylvania faction. I think either of these starting lords, I think Manfred's a better, feels way cooler. But in terms of strategic value, I think they're both valid. So I'm going to put them both in the same tier. I think that tier should be A.
Fair enough. You are a big vampire fanboy.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll move on to one of my favourite factions. We'll start with Azag the Slaughterer.
I think Azag is the worst
Orc Lords?
Yes. And I don't think it's particularly close.
The other ones are all great for so many different reasons, so we'll go into that.
Yeah.
Azag's just a bit like generic, right? Just a guy on a wyvern with some spells. That's what he's up to.
Yeah. Certainly his, he isn't a spellcaster until you do his first quest is a relatively no other spellcaster has that. But he doesn't offer that much. His faction effects of plus research rate and plus relations with vampire counts are kind of whatever. His start location is pretty rough.
Yeah.
Like you're fighting, it's not that difficult to fight the random empire Kislev people up there.
Got some Skaven clans there now. Which one?
Oh, I hadn't even considered. It might be
a bit
naked underway to that bit of land.
Yeah,
that gives us some room for expansion. That might actually be quite strong.
People do not attack you over there.
Yeah, that is fascinating. I hadn't considered that. Yeah.
Ooh, spiced it up a bit.
I still think like the way you get going with greenskins these days is very similar to the Norscan start, where you want to be hunting down lords, winning battles, and just getting free confederations.
Yeah.
Right. And I think he's by far the least suited to doing that.
It's far away.
It's about you have to trudge through a bunch of like Ungrim Iron Fist is right near you and hates you, and Slayers are relatively strong against Orc infantry because you're not that good at blasting them with artillery. Yeah, I think Aztec is the worst of the Greenskin Lords, and I think I would struggle to place him in anything other than.
See. What were you thinking, D?
Greenskins are really powerful. Like
greenskins are fun. I really enjoy them.
Part of the thing I really enjoy about greenskins is the Confederation stuff. I think I put him in D. I don't know. He's not unplayable. No, he's got to be C. Yeah, no, he's in the Orion camp of doing this is a little punitive to yourself, but
you can still do it if you want to. Like it's fine. Like Orcs, they've got a huge roster. They've got fun characters. Like Azag's got some unique abilities.
War mechanic
still
continues to be very strong.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
All right, Grom the Paunch.
I think this might be our first S.
I fucking love Grom the Paunch. Like,
the Grom's Cauldron is just
so good.
It's just it's broken. Realistically,
the exploding goblin arrows are just like, whoa, who did this?
Yes, you get your Doom stack costs 1,000 gold a turn. Like it. You have a really strong economy. You have a really strong unit roster. You have some buffs for units that aren't super relevant. Your wars contain extra pump wagons. I don't want that. Go away.
But they're there. Hooray!
And you've got minus diplomatic relations with High Elves. But given your start location, if you want to not fight the High Elves, they're not going to come to you.
Yeah, exactly. Because you start in Bretonnia, right? Your Grugzint is where you start.
Massive Orcal.
Massive Orcal. Sorry.
It might be called. The city might be called Gromson.
Which is I've never actually played a Grom campaign from that position. I played Grom in Vortex. But his start positions in Bretonnia seemed really interesting for Orcs because, like, while Skarsnik is sort of around there, he does not want to be fighting Bretonnia at all.
Certainly, the way I started with Grom was beeline to Skarsnik and kill him immediately.
Yes, which is I think is cool.
Which is fun too.
Yeah,
like, it's
that
a
is
really
fun.
interesting world hop. Like, you need to stay away from the Wood Elves and stuff, and you gotta. Do you want to fight your way through Paragon or just run through them? Like, yeah, I think Grom Paunch has a really powerful faction ability, and in a faction that's in a really good place, a good start location,
and it's fun, right? Because you're hunting down you're hunting down the food, and then you're making it yourself, and you can change it like sort of on the fly if you fancy it. And
I think
it's fun to make all the recipes and experiment.
It's definitely engaging, and it encourages you to do things that you wouldn't necessarily prioritize. Like, oh, I need to kill some vampire coast. How am I going to do that? Am I going to declare war on the Dreadfleet or something? It encourages you to make some off the beaten path decision making, and he encourages units that aren't necessarily the best units for that faction. You have minus 50% upkeep for pump wagons in his army. Oh. Sure, maybe I will check out these pump wagons.
Yeah.
You won't, you'll discover they're bad. But,
but it was fun while it lasted.
Yeah, and he's a strong individual lord as well. Like, he's extremely tanky and has regeneration.
Did you say at some point he's immune to damage if there's a certain situation where he can't die? In combat? Like, he regens too quickly or something?
He certainly can have the Manfred thing of,
soloing
in a bunch of infantry, they just can't deal enough damage to him, and he's... And eventually regen cap is what kills him. Or
one more thing. Also, he starts with the best character name in the game, with the fishy tittle launcher.
Oh yeah, that is a genuine upside of starting with a very powerful hero as well.
Yeah, it's a good hero. It's a wizard and it's a troll, and Decent. So, I love Grom. I have no complaints about him being an S. I think he was one of the best Lord packs because he also came with another great Lord, which we'll talk about later. So I think Grom is solid. For S for solid. There you go. Did it. So now S tier is Grom tier until another one joins him. Wurzag, your best mate, Wurzag.
I think I put Wurzag in A. I think Wurzag is what I would recommend as the default greenskin experience. I haven't played with Grimgor since the rework, but I believe Wurzag is a stronger start.
Wurzag start's definitely easier. Like Grimgor's got to fight dwarves and stuff in the mountains, whereas Wurzag just wanders around a big old plain.
But for both of them, like their first priority for both factions is to
each other.
Kill the other. Yeah. Which means I think their campaigns play relatively similarly. Part of the appeal of something as Wurzag is that the AI is better at building up their settlements, and you want Black Crag to be more built up. Generally, that might not quite be true, but in terms of faction effects, I think this is going to be the tiebreaker. Both of them have quite bad faction effects. Wurzag has plus charge bonus for Savage Orcs, and Grimgor has plus movement speed for all characters, which is good, but
it's okay.
And minus upkeep for Black Orcs and Big Guns, which are going to be a lot of armies. That Grimgor probably does have the stronger faction effects, looking at it. Wurzag has some climate changes, which is interesting. Wurzag doesn't like frozen, but does like jungle and desert.
Oh, really?
Jungle and frozen are not anywhere near you, but the fact he likes desert
that's
is
important for the
relevant.
South. Yeah.
So rarely that's where I push with the
It's
orcs,
true.
but,
it's true.
But
I mean, sometimes Cetra does not give you a choice. Cetra is not.
I think this is a little like Manfred Gorst, where they're both equally viable, slightly different, but they play similarly enough that I want to put them both in A, and I think I'm okay with it.
I think Wurzag's a better Lord. I think the fact that he's a wizard and he gets a mount, whereas Grimgor's just slogging it on foot.
Gets neither of those. Yeah. I do think Wurzag is a stronger individual character, like as a general, is more powerful.
Yeah.
But given that they both get each other so soon, it doesn't
I think that Wurzag also, like, because he's doing a unique thing, because when we were discussing this yesterday, Matt mentioned that there's no Savage Orc Lord. You can sort of buff them with a regular Orc Lord, but like Savage Orc Lords exist in like the lore and in the game, but Wurzag's the only actual one in this game. So it's cool that you have one, because they're aspects of Orcs that people like. I like them.
Yeah, for sure. I think both of them in A makes sense to me.
Yeah. All right. Do you want to talk any more about Grimgor, or do you think you covered it both with? I think Grimgor. Grimgor's got the dwarves to start with.
He's had a bunch of buffs recently. He's in a better place than he was. His start location, like Black Crag, is unassailable. Very powerful, but he is relatively it's a less defensible position. Like Wurzag has the river to his west that makes him much more difficult to assault. Whereas Grimgor, there's a lot of Skaven, like Eshin, like two of the most powerful factions controlled by the AI, the Dwarves and Eshin, are both near there. That can be a blessing and a curse. Like, it's definitely nice that you're able to fight them before they get snowballing. You know, if you're over in Ulthuan and then come over here and the Dwarves have 56 settlements, that's a problem.
Yeah.
It's probably not true on this patch either, but certainly the Eshin comes over and you have 56 settlements, you're in a lot of trouble. Whereas Grimgor can actually take those threats out early before they get rolling. But also, that's a hard slog. You know?
Yeah, I agree.
Dwarves in particular can be pretty hellish to fight.
If Clan Moors are having a good campaign, they will come up from the south and start attacking Black Crag.
Faction that can Skaven are just so strong that can definitely be a problem. I think that's what I have to say about Grimgor.
Yeah, fair enough. All right, now we've got my favourite, Skarsnik.
For me,
he's got schemes.
I think Skarsnik is less fun than he used to be.
You're wrong.
Okay. My favourite thing about Skarsnik was that it was a very difficult problem to be solved. The campaign was extremely difficult. You had to do some tactics you wouldn't necessarily do, like abandon your home to starting settlement. You don't do that as any other faction. I don't think you do it now as Skarsnik.
No, the trick is, right, you rename your first settlement to Carragate Peaks, and then you're done. You finish the quest.
Yeah.
It's a flawless strategy. It works every time.
Talk about Skarsnik's penalties compared to other factions. Number one is his garrisons. It's not stated anywhere on his faction description, but he doesn't get orcs ever in his garrisons.
He doesn't have garrisons.
Are terrible, and that's a problem. It makes it relatively difficult to hold land, and as a faction effect, and that's basically as a faction effect. Even if you confederate all the other lords, you're going to have significantly worse garrisons than you would have as any other faction. To counteract that, minus 40% upkeep for goblins and night goblins is ridiculous, and minus 50% cost for heroes and double XP for heroes is also obscenely powerful.
He has a really strong hero-based campaign, which I think is actually quite interesting and unique.
Yeah, I think his faction pluses are very high. His faction negatives do exist and are significant. I think his start these days is not the puzzle that it was, and is probably just a pretty medium. Like, you probably go fetch Grom, right? Oh no, because
Grom spawns
Grom
in
is
Ulthuan.
He's in Ulthuan.
Yeah.
Okay, so his start is probably you're heading over to Wurzag and trying to take him out ASAP, which Wurzag. So the first few turns are probably roughly the similar. Stronger, obviously, a bunch of buffs all around as the greenskins, and certainly if you can get a War on 8 peaks, it's going to make actually taking that city much, much, much easier. Oh my god. Yeah, I think it's definitely A or B.
He must be A, surely. Like, he is fun. He's unique and he's different. Like, he isn't the same as the other Orc Lords.
Yeah. I think I would put him in B. B is the tier where we've put these are a good variant on this faction. After you've enjoyed the faction, go play the variant go play the slightly different experience. He's probably he's probably the highest in B. He's definitely above all the tiers.
We'll get to that at the end. So yeah, we'll bear that in mind. You said something interesting about Night Goblin Lords yesterday, where you said you often have Night Goblin stacks in your other armies.
Unlike most factions, greenskins really, really encourage very specialized armies. Their red trees is very strong, and if you have a Night Goblin leading an army of Night Goblins, that's a good stack. Having an Orc leading a stack of Orcs, also a good stack. Very different armies, almost no overlap, but both good. Generally speaking, the Orc stack is stronger. The main appeal of the Goblin stack is that it's cheaper. Sometimes 2 armies of Goblins can be as expensive as an army of Orcs, and obviously that doesn't hold up in the late game once supply lines catches you up. Sometimes all you need is a stack of Goblins, and having access to this kind of much cheaper stack is very beneficial. It's not as strong as the Orc stacks, though. Certainly not in the very late game.
I do love that at this point that the game is managing to have you have both of these options.
Yeah,
and it's encouraging you to do it. Now, I don't know if the same is true of like Goblin stacks or like. There's no incentive to play Goblins. Exactly right. It's either Goblins all together or Orcs all together.
Yeah.
Which isn't 100% accurate to like game Warhammer, which would have been more like Black Orc stack, Savage Orc stack. I guess Wurzag buffs them, but I think I love that this faction can do that, because I think that's quite unique in the whole game. I don't think of many factions that go.
Yeah.
That's a stack of this and that's a stack of this under the same lord. I mean, maybe if you're like Skaven, if you confederate like Ikit or something, aren't they? But Skarsnik, I don't know. Orcs just feels more natural, I think.
Yeah, great. I think part of that comes from a very strong red tree.
Yes. Yeah. So I'm sad about Skarsnik. So you've upset me. I'm upset. How dare you? Why have you done this? I'll sneak a bit into S when you're not looking. Unglim Iron Fist, Slayer King. I hate
this has to be a
so
C.
much.
Yeah, I know. You're gonna have to put that. Suppress that.
No, I will never suppress my hatred of dwarves.
It's worth pointing out that in the current patch, dwarves are in a significantly worse place than they've been for a few patches. This is mostly due to the growth changes adversely affecting dwarves who have very limited growth. It's now incredibly difficult to get to a tier 5 settlement as dwarves. They have more tier 5 units than basically another faction.
Whoops.
So dwarves are in a bad place. Going to put that as a kind of disclaimer up front. Ungrim has the problem that a lot of C tier kind of has. Certainly, Orion has. Of he has a bunch of buffs for units you shouldn't be building. And minus 50% recruitment cost for Slayer. Not even upkeep, just recruitment cost. And the reduced cost of Slayer buildings is not
a buff.
Strong. And basically everything he is doing encourages you to have one stack of Slayers. Ungrim himself should probably actually have a stack of mostly Slayers. He has reduced upkeep for them, increased attack for them. He gives them all Journey's End, which means they can't die until they take a certain amount of damage. His army full of Slayers is very, very strong. And then he just kind of says, I don't bother with the rest of the faction. Fine.
He's just playing regular dwarves now.
Which doesn't make him a good faction leader.
Yeah.
He's fun to confederate. He's fun to build that stack. You shouldn't probably start as him. His start location is not especially strong. Like, obviously the building itself, the city itself has a unique building that has some Slayer garrisons, so it's not that hard. It's relatively easy to hold. But your start's hard. Like, taking Drakenhof is nightmarish, doable, but really hard.
Azag to the north.
Azag to the north, enemies on all sides.
Impossible.
There's no, Zufbar is weaker than it used to be. It's not even a strong Confederate target anymore. Yeah. It's...
Clan Septic now as well, because they're like an actual strong...
That's probably actually a big problem.
Skaven clan. So Clan Septic are like the Skaven clan that have been added in the new stretch of land, like in the top right corner of the map. They're like the top Skaven clan. You may not have met them if you're not playing campaigns around there since the new release of DLC, but they are like weirdly powerful because they just sort of get left alone and they just sort of absorb a bunch of cities around them. Ungrim, I think, has the... I think he would, if he started in the same place, if he hadn't been moved, he would definitely be D, because why would you play him compared to the other lords? I think he might just be D anyway, though. Okay.
He's definitely either D or... No, let's put him C. I think before this patch I would put him in C, but Dwarves got nerfed.
I think C. I think C is fine.
Yeah, I think bottom of C, top of D is about... Alright, probably bottom of C. Bottom of C is fine.
He's not unplayable. He's just not great. But dwarves are all kind of in that camp anyway.
Belegar in a lower tier, so...
Well, Belegar's probably D, right? Maybe F? Like, it's kind of horrible.
I certainly think D-F border is where I'm going to put Belegar, which I think we can move on to now.
Top F or bottom D?
Yeah, top F. Let's put him top F. No! Yeah, top F. Top F, fine.
Oops.
So Belegar has the problem of being one of the most difficult campaigns by design. All of the factions, in theory, racing for 8 peaks were meant to be very challenging campaigns. Moors was kind of added last minute, and that kind of wasn't a thing. But his penalty is really rough. 50% upkeep until you capture 8 peaks is absolutely brutal. Unlike Skarsnik, this penalty is completely gone once you control 8 peaks. You don't have this crippled garrison. Once you have 8 peaks, your faction functions at full force. What benefits do you get for the faction? No. There's no faction upsides. In faction upsides, you have the 4 clan Angrand heroes, which are quite strong.
They're pretty cool.
Like 4 ghostly immortal heroes.
They're fun and unique as well. Like,
the main issue is that as a faction effect, it doesn't scale well. Like 4 characters do not scale well in the late game necessarily.
But as a confederation target.
Yeah, I agree that Belegar is great to confederate and pretty underwhelming to control. It's a hard campaign. It's an extremely slow grind to get over there. You certainly can't do it's much harder to do the abandon my start city and make it over there because you just don't have any money. You often will go broke and have to be garrisoned the whole way so you don't take attrition from your lack of funds because the dwarf economy is incredibly slow to get going. It's pretty gross. Sometimes the wood elves declare on you because you start next to them.
They never do anything. They just sit there.
I have been attacked by Orion.
Okay, well, fair enough.
There's separate patches going, but
yeah. So.
Yeah, it's Belegar has a rough time.
It doesn't sound fun. None of the stuff you said sounds fun.
Yeah, there's nothing there's nothing unique. He doesn't encourage you to do anything special other than have 4 ghosts, which is kind of cool, and have a miserable time. And yeah, I think Belagar is just a shoot yourself in the foot to see if it's interesting campaign.
Yeah, but he's also doing that with one of the least interesting factions, in my opinion, as well. Like, it's not like Skaven or something, or High Elves.
Certainly a High Elf who shot himself in the foot would be more interesting, because I'd like to play crippled High Elves.
That exists, that's Imric.
Yeah, but Imric still feels so powerful.
So did you say bottom of D or top of F? Because I have an argument for top of F. Right.
I'm happy with top of F.
Okay. Well, my argument was going to be that when you beat him in battle, his trait that you get from him is rubbish, which makes me hate him more. So.
Sure.
All right. So we've got Dwarf God.
Yeah. So this decision is relatively interesting. I have always chosen to play Grombradol with
Santa Claus.
Grombradol is Santa Claus.
This guy looks like Santa Claus.
Oh, sure. I think in the lore, the White Dwarf is actually.
Is he actually
Santa? To Santa Claus. I'm pretty sure he brings gifts.
Oh, that's cute. I wish he brought gifts of good campaigns.
His faction effects are more powerful. Like the Thorgrim offers campaign movement range because he's a faction 1 race leader.
Hooray!
And some other small things, but the choose an ancestor god ability that you get from the White Dwarf is much stronger. It provides several faction-wide bonuses and is quite interesting. It's not much of a decision. Which one you want to choose is relatively clear. It's not. It's the same as the Moon of Morceleb for Beastmen. It's every turn choose one of 4 options for a faction-wide effect.
That's not fun.
It's not great. The White Dwarf also has the problem. This is a pretty minor thing, but it is relevant. His quest battles are just impossible to start.
Yeah, because you have to kill a Norsca unit, right?
Win 3 battles against Norsca.
So many battles.
It's just completely impossible, and that can be frustrating. Whereas Thorgrim, I think actually, let me just check how easy it is to recruit one another. I think it's easier as the White Dwarf to recruit Thorgrim than Thorgrim can recruit the White Dwarf.
Sure.
But certainly, if we're going by faction effects, the White Dwarf has significantly stronger faction effects. They've got the exact same start location, so that doesn't make any difference. They're roughly equivalent in combat. I've never been, they're slow-moving melee units. They're good against.
Grommador's better at hitting stuff, and the King's better at living, right? He's tanky.
Sure. He certainly has a larger leadership aura and some defensive bonuses to nearby units. But it's pretty whatever.
I agree. That's my general opinion on that.
So to get the White Dwarf, you need to build the Monument of Grimnir. How do you do that? Monument of Grimnir. So that's a tier 4 Slayer building to get the White Dwarf as Thrombendal. Is that his name?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I'll come back to what you need to do as the other thing. Load times take a while. But I think the start locations are the same. Neither of their faction effects are so overwhelming that I'm especially interested in them. I think they're going to have this. I think they're both B tier because dwarves are a B tier, not an A tier civ.
Sure, not a C tier civ with their growth debuff.
If they're a C tier civ, then the Slayer King definitely used to move down to D.
Okay, well.
No, I don't. I think the corner camp and artillery spam is a really powerful strategy that gets you pretty far. I do think they're a B tier rather than a C tier civ. They're way better than the bad factions.
Sure. I mean, I would class dwarves as a bad faction, though. So
I know, yeah, but you would say that even there were patches where they were the strongest civ, and you still.
I would still say they're the worst faction. Yeah.
Yeah.
I just hate dwarves. Hate them.
Okay, so to get Thorgrim as the White Dwarf, you need to clear 8 grudges, which is definitely easier to do on this patch than getting a tier 4 building. So yeah. My inclination would be to say Grombradal is stronger of the two, but it's not so clear cut that I'm going to put the High King in D or F or whatever.
Yeah. Okay, fair enough. You don't think the High King's a C and Grombradal's a B, or you happy where they are?
I think they're close enough in power level.
Okay.
Is that true?
If you've not noticed, I've removed myself from the opinions on this one because I would just put them all on F and be done with it.
Yeah, you're not biased at all.
Nope. Hey man, everyone's biased about everything. That's how humans work.
I wouldn't mind putting the hiking in C. No. It's definitely worse.
Well, we can move them up at the end if we think that it's unfair, right?
Maybe.
We'll see. Put him in B, okay.
Oh, he's worse than everyone else in B, though. Yeah, put him in C. C is fine. Cool. Sorry. Wavering a bit, but if I had to rate him in power level, looking at those other C heroes, that is about right for him.
Yeah, so. Fair enough. Alright, so we're on to the Empire. And the one with the best voice, Marcus Wolfhart. And maybe the second best Empire campaign? Maybe the best Empire campaign?
Well, so this is interesting, because although I think he's one of the most interesting campaigns, he's also fucking difficult compared to the others. Like, man.
But he's not like an unbeatable hard. He's like a... This is a challenge, but you are also the Empire, so...
I don't know, I think he's really difficult, I think.
So, just quickly before we start on sort of like difficulty, I love his Huntsman focus. I think that's so sweet. I love the fact he gets those 4 unique heroes.
The 4 unique heroes are really cool.
They're really cool. I really like them. Because they make like a little fun group with Marcus, and they're all like a fun little D&D party running around. And we've had some epic battles with Marcus in Lustria against a bunch of big old dinosaurs. I love Huntsman buffs. I do actually quite like Huntsman Lords, especially with Marcus. They're pretty sweet.
He gets +3 recruit rank for them, so
yeah, which is pretty good. I mean, I've never struggled like massively with campaigns with him, but I only play on hard because sometimes I can't be bothered to think. Okay, no, that's not true. Very hard on the campaign map, but hard on the battles. So if
when that's available, but in co-op that's not how it works.
No. So it's hard. It's just hard on co-op. I think he's solid. I think he's at least a B.
Yeah, I think B is probably about right for him. The one thing with his faction mechanics, although it adds a lot of extra difficulty, and it's a lot of extra difficulty, it's a very hill and trough kind of difficulty. It's not, this is hard all the time. It's, I'm really struggling. Oh, my Hellstorm rocket batteries have arrived. I'm doing okay now.
Don't the Hellstorm rocket batteries bring like grenade launcher outriders with them?
Yeah, you get your reinforcement batches can get extremely powerful.
Yeah. And you can get them quite early.
Yeah, you absolutely can. You can absolutely have, like, you can get tier 5 units just obscenely early. So it's definitely a hill and trough campaign. Like, it's, your reinforcements drive you feel really powerful, and then a Nakai Doom stack turns up, beelining for your capital, and you're like,
Wait, Nakai is a factor? I've never had Nakai be a factor in any campaign I've ever played.
No, I don't. The fucking, the armies that, like, the spawned armies that go straight for you. Sometimes Nakai use them, not the actual Nakai faction.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
The Nakai faction is non-existent, especially in Mortal Empires, where they start in Albion.
Yeah. We'll get to him. The
Doom stack the stack that spawns and comes at you can be a real problem.
You are missing out on like the Empire mechanic with the elect counts and all the magic items and stuff you get off that.
I do, he's certainly that, like...
And you never confederate because you're so far away.
Difficulty alone, like, if this was a how difficult is this campaign, he's probably D tier, maybe F, as one of the, like, really very challenging start locations that does, like, is difficult. He is being bolstered by the fact that the Empire is a mid-tier faction.
It's got a very full roster which can deal with anything. That's its strength. So if you're fighting Lizardmen, you know what you want to be building.
That's certainly true. He's being bolstered by how fun the campaign is. Really fun, fundamentally. Very difficult. You never get to confederate realistically. No. Trying to even meet the Empire back home is
hard.
is a ludicrous endeavor until the event turns up and you meet all port owners. But that's like turn 70 or something.
Does he hate all Lizardmen, or is it just certain Lizardmen factions? I can't remember.
He doesn't have any he doesn't have any minus relations with Lizardmen as a faction effect. Although he does get minus relations with all factions as part of his
hostility,
hostile action thing. So Marcus is an extremely. I think he's lower tier B, maybe even high C.
I feel like he's so much more fun than these lords, though, right? Like these lords.
I think fun is what's striking him up. So let's have him at the bottom.
We can always move him if we feel like he sticks out in B. It's fine. So the rest of Empire is going to be pretty simple, I think. So we've got the Golden Boy, Balthasar Gelt.
I think Gelt's start location is much more interesting than the actual default Empire start location. You actually have Empires to fight. You're much closer, like you'll start fighting the vampire counts right away.
That's true.
You've got that gate to the south of you, which holds off enemies pretty effectively. There's a small Skaven faction for you to fight if you feel like it.
Mm-hmm.
In the South Grey Mountains.
Yeah.
Sure. But realistically, you're fighting the vampires very early. Gelt himself is very powerful. Lord of Metal's a great school of magic. His faction effects are extremely good. Plus 10 armor for all units is really one of the better faction effects.
It's real.
Plus 2 battle wizards is really good. You do want most of your stacks to have a wizard.
Every Empire stack, I believe, should have a wizard.
At
least one.
So really, Gelt has a lot going for him. His start location is not as powerful as the Empire's. The Empire itself gets, the much more powerful capital building and access to Marienburg straight away. Yeah.
Well, actually, Legend of Total War made a video saying you should probably not attack Marienburg straight away. You should go through the Empire and round because it stops the Norscans declaring war on you early.
Sure, that makes a ton of sense. I often do struggle with the Norscans as the Empire. That makes sense.
But Marienburg will be in. You will acquire Marienburg at some point. Like it's a guarantee.
Yeah, it's one of the Elect Count seats anyway, right?
Exactly.
You get
Get an extra
sword.
I think you get a port buff for that one, but that's still good because Marienburg has the best port. So
yeah.
Anyway, Gelt.
So I think Gelt is strong. I think given the overall strength of the Empire, I think A is fine.
I agree. I'm less into Gelt than I am the Emperor.
Franz.
Yeah.
That's you like saying all his lines. His
Franz has
not
great
particularly
lines.
strong. Minus 50% upkeep for right guarding greatswords is good, but it's not crazy.
No.
It's not like you're building stacks where 10 of your units are greatswords.
Unless you're crazy.
You probably shouldn't build armies like that. Plus 2 Lord Recruit rank is fine, and plus 10% movement range is fine. The main appeal of Karl Franz over Gelt is the stronger starting province.
Very, very strong.
You're neighbouring a bunch of other small Empire factions. The Empire system can make it a little difficult for Karl Franz to find enemies to fight at the start, though the Orcs somehow are a huge problem for him.
Yeah. I think what you should be doing with Karl Franz is you should be kill the Empire Secessionists, go through Pavron, either killing it or just walk through it, and fight your way to the Orcs, kill the Orcs, and then loop back around to... And
by then you can start confederating people or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. Then you'll probably have to deal with Sylvania, who have probably amassed enough power to be a problem.
Yeah. Yeah, I think Karl Franz is going to be in the same tier as Gelt.
I think so.
I'm happy with an A.
It's Gelt.
I'm going to put Volkmar below that. I think art location is the same. His faction effects are non-existent for the most part.
Yeah, poor Volkmar. I think he's a really interesting...
he's a fun lord to recruit and confederate, but as a faction leader, it just offers very little. His start units aren't good.
But
he has very strong buffs for flagellants. Like, of the lords that take a unit and buff them, his buffs for flagellants might be the best of any unit buffs.
Does he have them on top of his abilities then? And I'm just misremembering.
Yeah, so his lord effects are plus 30% casualty replenishment rate, plus 14 melee defense, and plus 12% physical resist. That's obscene. Sure. That is unbelievable buffs.
It is.
If flagellants weren't unplayable, he would be busted.
He fits into this Slayer King thing, right? Where he's like his army's like fun and unique.
Yeah.
And it's running around doing its own thing. But why would you? Also, it used to be very difficult to be Volkmar and get the Emperor because you had to confederate an Empire faction
That's much easier now.
Much easier now, but it used to, when I played it, it was before the Empire system had come in, and it was like, this is awful. Whereas all the Empire has to do is build like a tier 4 temple, which is quite simple.
Yeah, these days I reckon the Confederating is easier.
Maybe. But tier 4 temple is still quite easy.
Yeah, so I think, comparing to the Slayer Kings is really interesting, because like, the Slayer Kings buffs for Slayers are good, but they're not that big. It's minus 25% upkeep and plus 5 melee attack. That's good, but it's not crazy.
You're right, that's not crazy.
Whereas 30% replenishment, 14 melee defense, 12. Those are huge buffs. It takes their melee defense from 12 to 26. That's more than doubling it.
That's pretty good.
That's mental. Like of the leaders that take a unit and buff them, he does it best.
I also do love his war altar.
I think he's got to be beat it. He might be C if Empire weren't. If his start wasn't so good, he would be C.
Yeah,
as a lord, he's not a good faction leader. In fact, actually, you know what? Put him in C. Put him in C exclusively because if you're picking him, you are just having a bad tie compared to playing the Emperor.
Yeah, you should be playing Karl Franz.
If the Emperor didn't exist, he would be B. The Emperor exists, so he's C.
And he's summoning the Elector Counts.
Like, you're having a harder campaign than you should be for basic, like, no real benefit. It's not a different start. It's not a hard, like, it's not especially, like, turning the difficulty up a lot. It's just, this isn't quite as good, which is nothing.
Alright, so that's the Empire. I look forward to them eventually getting another lord.
Yeah.
I live and dream for that day. Okay, now on to the Doom Kings of Kemney. Starting with my least favorite.
I'm gonna let you take the lead on these as our resident Tomb King.
I am a Tomb King. Inside me, there is a Tomb King.
To hear what you have to say.
Okay, so Arkan. So I've played all these campaigns way too many times, probably Katep at least. But we're starting with Arkan. So Arkan is, I think, him and Katep have the hardest Tomb King starts. Arkan's is really odd because it can fluctuate depending on what the AI decides to do. Because if the Dwarves declare war on you early, that's a real problem. Arkan struggles with the Bretonnians quite a lot because he doesn't have the tools in his starting army to deal with them. Like, he's a Scorpion. That's it. Like, his starting army
against armor a lot.
Like ghouls, which are good against like generic low armored infantry, but Dwarves and Bretonnians don't really fit that category very well. Like, as peasants, but even though they have shields,
they're not the scary parts.
No, exactly. Like, when we've played campaigns with them, we've had to so how are we going to kill this one unit of knights with Arkan and the Scorpion? And that's been like the whole game plan. So Tomb Kings can't confederate, which really irritates me. It's sort of like thematically okay for Arkan, but the others I'm like, eh. So that sort of, I think, bumps them down in like fun level, because you're never going to play a game where you're confederating all the lords and having like a fun Tomb King party, because they all hate each other. So Arkan, I would say, he is definitely the unique, because he's playing with some vampire units, but he sort of falls into the Sartosa camp if he's not doing too much with them. Like, he just has some vampire units. Rates are strong, really cool. But you're not doing anything interesting with the faction. You're not like half and halving it, or something like that, where you're like super extreme. Like, you're like a Tomb King with Tomb Kings, but also like you've got like a vampire tree that's like fairly significant. You are just basically a Tomb King with like some ghouls in the early game.
Yeah.
But once you get past like a certain point, you don't really want to be recruiting any of the vampire units.
I think Hex Raids.
Apart from Hex Raids.
And I want to point out, and I think this is really important for Arkan, is that the quest for Naga Shazir is
that is fun.
My favourite thing. Yeah. Like, that, the unique building you get in Naga Shazir is completely, utterly insane.
Yeah. And
honestly, I think these days Arkan plays like an 8 faction.
Yeah.
Where you're having a worse than average campaign up until then, and then you get to have the victory lap of, here are my doom stacks of 0 upkeep hex rates. Lol.
And that is sweet. That's a really awesome aspect, because like some of the pyramids are some of the best parts of the Tomb Kings. Like acquiring all the pyramids and building them. Arkan loves doing that. It's fun to go get his tower, because you obviously don't start in it. It's like, I should probably go get my tower.
I will say as well that on this patch in particular, that dream is so much harder than it used to be. I think Tomb Kings are in a really bad place on this particular patch. The growth nerfs hurt so much. You know, Tomb Kings really not Tomb Kings more than any other faction want all of their settlements at high tier. Like,
Yeah, they do.
as the Empire, if I have 1 or 2 cities at tier 5, the rest can be tier 3, and I won't care ever because I'll just recruit in those 2 cities and it's fine. Whereas, because of the capacity system for Tomb Kings, I want all of my cities at the highest capacity they can possibly be. Please, I need it. And
Give me Sphinxes and give them to me now.
The growth nerfs, it's another 20 turns for each settlement to get up that much, and that hurts.
Yeah.
Means you're not getting the unique buildings, you're not getting those tier 5 units anywhere near as soon. You know, even your starting city can be turn 80 before you get to tier 5, and that sucks. So I think for all these Tomb Kings, they're in a bad place right now, and I think, especially since you want to get Nagashazir to tier 5.
Yeah.
Oh my god, how is that ever happening at this stage?
We got great time investment. The Tomb Kings have been around for a while. They're used to waiting. It's kind of their vibe.
Sure.
So a couple more things about Arkan. Like, one of his faction benefits is a buff with vampires for diplomatic relations, which does straight up nothing. Because one, you don't spawn near any vampires, and the vampire coasts that you spawn near hate you because you're.
It's only vampire counts, not vampire.
Well, you get a plus like 50 bonus relations with the Awakening.
Sure.
Luther Harkin, but it doesn't do anything because he declares war on you half the time, even though you've got a impact.
Yeah.
He never really does anything because you're so far away from each other, but it is irritating. Your corner's like fairly defensible, which is kind of nice. Arkan himself is a pretty decent lord. He's got death magic.
Yeah.
He's got a flying. Oh, his chariot doesn't fly. It's meant to fly, but his chariot floats, and it's big. Question mark. He's also okay in combat, and he can.
The other thing to mention with his start location is that I don't actually know what the Chaos Invasion is like on this patch for down there. But
that's true.
He used to get a lot of chaos punching him in the face in a way that was like in lands that should, in theory, be extremely easy to defend, and you shouldn't need to build walls. Instead, you need to really, really build walls where you start, and that sucks.
So Arkan's he's hard, but again, he falls into that category, I think, of like Reponse and stuff, where he's like, if you've played Cetra or Khalida, this is like a good next step campaign. Like, it's something a bit different, but it's also similar if you want more Tomb King action. Who doesn't?
Yeah,
love Tomb King action.
I think I agree with that evaluation, but I'm putting him in C. I would put him in C because Tomb Kings are in a bad place.
Okay. Well, we've got a Dwarf in B, so...
Dwarves are in a better place than Tomb Kings right now. Tomb Kings are in a very bad place.
Tomb Kings are always in the best place. You just build tier 1 archers and you win all your fights. It's very simple. Okay. Also, which you mentioned, Arkan also summons skeleton units, which is quite unique. No one else does that, and they're very useful to spawn in battle. So Queen Khalida, who is fine. She is like depowered Cetra, who buffs different units. She buffs archers, stalkers, and Necropolis Knights, if I remember correctly.
Certainly not as a faction effect, but yes, a unique tree.
Yeah, Her
faction effects, just like a nothing. It's plus 20% ammunition. That's it.
Sure.
Diplomatic relations. She has very little to go for her faction effects. Her start location is
fine.
It's not.
It depends how well Moors are doing.
The issue is that both Clan Moors and Clan Eshin are relatively near to you, relatively powerful, and the like sensible thing for you to do is go wipe out Krokgar straight away, and that's not easy either.
No.
You do get Lamia. Lamia's a great city.
Lamia is super good.
But you have to fight for it. It's not like it's a starting city.
No, but it's not super hard to beat. The Lamian Brotherhood, I think they're called, or Lamian something. So she's fine. I think she's again like a challenge campaign. Like if you've played Cetra and enjoyed it, here's another lord. She's her buffing of the snakes, I think, is actually kind of cool. I think that's a nice thing to be doing because they're not like units that you would normally use a lot of. Because the cavalry building, it's tier 5. It's tier 1 to tier 4, which is quite hard for Tomb Kings to do, and it's expensive. And you only get like one unit of Necropolis Knights at the top. It's just like so it's like hard to do, but buffing stalkers, which are relatively easy to get, is nice. And I find that when I'm playing Khalida campaigns in like a non-power gamey min-max way, I am putting units of stalkers in my army and going, I'm pretty happy with these guys. They're not bad. And it's nice to be able to do that.
Sure.
She's also an okay lord. Her mount's not great. It's annoying that she gets a snake and like Cetra gets like a sphinx or a good chariot.
Yeah.
I'm starting.
Makes sense. She's on a snake. But...
Well, she wasn't in the snake in the game. She's buffed archers.
Oh, okay.
Her job in the sorry, here, some real Warhammer lore quickly is she was on foot and she would just sit in the end of archers and give them poison. That was her whole thing. That's all she did. So her being on any mount really is very lore accurate. But she's a good fighter, if I remember correctly. Like her stats are like pretty. Because she's fast. Because she's not actually like dead. She's like a spirit.
Sure.
I am interested to see what they do when Neferata arrives. If they will tweak Khalida in any ways, because their rivalry is like a very strong lore point, and they've already put half it in the game. So I'll be interested to see that. But I think she's probably worse than Arkin. She's probably my least favorite Tomb King Lord to play.
I'd put her in C.
Yeah, she's.
Maybe D.
Yeah.
I think she's in such a bad place, and her start, especially now. Skaven are extremely strong,
so
even stronger than they ever used to be.
Yeah.
And she is very parenting. I think she's fine.
Sorry, Khalida, I love you.
Have a hard time. It's possible Arkin should also be there, but it's fine.
Kateb.
Kateb has the strongest faction effects.
Yeah, I think his factions are very good.
Plus replenishment rate, plus movement speed, and plus 2 Canopy Jars a turn are all very, very powerful.
He's also buffs for Lich Priests are real. He spawns with extra ones, and
of course, I was going to say that's a Lord effect, so you get that when you can confederate, but you can't confederate your Tomb King. So plus 2 hero capacity for Lich Priests and plus 3 recruit rank, very strong.
You have a bunch of really good Lich Priests right off the bat.
He starts with a Hero Titan, which is not quite as good as starting with a Sphinx, but
we should mention Khalida's starting units are not amazing. Like
you get Necro Knights,
and Stalkers. Like Arkin's got a Scorpion. Like, I'd much rather have a Scorpion. Scorpions are great. Kateb's got a Hero Titan, which is good. It's the tanky version of the 3 big monsters. Hero Titan's your tank 1, Necro Sphinx is your attacker, and Khemri Maw Sphinx is like your all-rounder. That's how I see them.
The main thing to talk about with Kateb is his start location.
Yes, it's definitely weird.
I think I have not played it on the current patch, and it's obviously going to be massively different. I think the Wood Elves...
Because the Wood Elves are there now,
really changed that dynamic. If the Wood Elves are as passive as they often are, they will still make a big difference to how the Beastmen behave, and the Beastmen are one of the biggest problems that Kateb faces right at the start of the campaign. Kateb's start is awkward and squished into the side of the map, which does mean no one's going to come from behind. There is no behind.
That is true.
But
stage of the world.
Everyone near you hates you.
Well, you can befriend a Lithanar sometimes.
Sure, because you're killing a lot of Dark Elves.
Yeah, and a Lithanar is a good lord to have on your side. He's often strong, controlled by the AI, and will help you roll up territory if that's what you're doing.
I think if Kateb started in Khemri, I would say he was competing with Cetra. As is, I think he has to be a full... I think he's probably C tier.
I think he's C.
His start is just really good.
Okay.
I think you're underestimating how bad Tomb King's on this patch.
I mean, I haven't played in this patch, so...
I think I always find his starting really, really, really hard. It's not good. It's not a nice place to You don't have underway, and you're dealing with a lot of mountain passes that are really slow to move around.
That's true.
While being harassed by Dark Elves have a good roster.
Yeah, they do.
And you can't outshoot them as much as you love Tomb King archers. I think Kateb has a rough one. I think C is about right.
Okay.
But Cetra, I am happy to put in B tier.
We put him on A last time we did this. It's poor Cetra.
Yeah, I know.
He's definitely the strongest of the Tomb King Lords. He's got the best starting army. Tomb Guard,
best start location, best starting army.
He's got Khemri himself.
Cetra
Cetra is a monster. He gets public order buffs.
He gets plus 10 growth, which is unbelievably important in this kind of patch. Plus 10 growth to all provinces really, really matters.
Actually, are we missing something here? Are we missing the fact that the Tomb King campaign in itself is a unique way to play these campaigns? Because we've not
What's
talked
the win condition?
No, I don't mean win condition. I mean there's no army upkeep. They have the Canopy Jar system. The win condition I think is the same as basically everything else.
Sure.
I mean they have a cool campaign quest battle. Oh, the books in the Gash. Sorry.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Is that not just Vortex? No, that's
both. That's both. In Mortal, you get all 9 books. In Vortex, you only get 5, I think.
Sure.
The Tomb Kings have a side quest to kill book armies, which are these quite strong roving armies, or sometimes important cities that you'll never take, like Ardolf.
Yeah, I think most of that comes into like other factions have had other unique win. Like Bretonnia has its unique win condition as well. One of the easier win conditions, and part of the reason Bretonnia is a nice short campaign. Certainly why I think Loen and the Fentron just make it to A tier is that their campaign ends. And yeah, I think the economy for Khemri, and like honestly, not having to pay upkeep is unique, but I don't think it's a positive thing for the faction. Like, I think overall their capacity system leads to weaker stacks than the factions with good economies. It leads to it's much easier to manage and quite strong than compared to like Norsca, who have quite a bad economy.
It's quite easy to snowball with Tomb Kings though, if you get a few armies and just sort of put them together. It's quite
slow. Like, part of the issue is it's quite slow. Like, most of your army capacity comes from research, which just takes time. Like, if you sit around and wait 20 turns, yeah, you get stronger naturalistically, even without taking extra territory. Your enemies get stronger faster. Like, I don't think Tomb Kings snowball that effectively. I'm
so wounded by all your comments, man. They're clearly all S tier.
Bad place right now.
Clearly all S tier. They've got some of the best voice lines.
Yeah, I know they're your pets.
They're my babies.
I think Cetra is B.
Okay, well, that's hard upsetting. Is that anything we want to say about Cetra? Screw those orcs to the north, they're the worst. Gnash one finger. Frustrate me. Yeah, it annoys me there's not like some way to work out how the Confederation works. Again, it's complicated because you don't want to like give them like double the army capacity because that would be insane. Same is true of the characters.
Mods exist.
Yeah, I know mods exist, but I've always dreamed that they'd just be in the game one day.
Yeah.
Because I want to play Tomb King Lord fun times. Alright, Celestra Diaphyn of the Vampire Coast.
Yeah.
She's not even a vampire. She's a wizard spirit.
More so than any other faction, it's worth talking about the unique campaign for
It's very fun.
Vampire Coast. It's very fun, very unique. Gaining infamy is interesting, and it really doesn't outstay its welcome. You are often completely done with the campaign by about turn 100, which is something that I really enjoy. Like, it doesn't translate at all to multiplayer. There's playing co-op campaigns, it just doesn't work, and it won't be for everyone. You know, you're not painting the map. You're not taking vast swathes of territory that you can. You're not encouraged to
because you're pirates.
They don't outstay their welcome. Celestra in particular, her main has two kind of hurdles. Number one, her start location is kind of shit.
Yep.
It's not it makes sense for her to go assault Hexawattle immediately, which is hard.
Does it make sense for anyone to ever do that?
It's difficult. Often you end up sieging it, they sally forth, and then you can beat them out in the open. That's certainly been my experience. And the Queen Bess helps a lot with that, because that thing is obscene. She has a difficult first, first 20 turns, is taking Hexawattle. And then her next naturalistic thing to do, and certainly what her quest battle tells us to do, is go take Lothern. Which is insane and just ridiculous. The High Elves on that island are such a rough... Taking Lothern is so hard.
I mean, this patch still has Marathi, sort of like power gaming, so sometimes the High Elves are a little bit on the back foot, and maybe you can catch them off guard.
Yeah, but the actual city of Lothern
combines
all the strength of the faction with a ridiculous garrison.
Yeah, it's pretty strong.
Slosh's actual faction effects aren't particularly good either. She has reduced upkeep and recruitment cost for Sirens and Mongols. Sirens and Mongols are not the good units. They're okay. They're not good.
She's a fairly good lord, though, that can summon Bretonnia Knights, if I remember correctly.
Ghostly
Bretonnia Knights. And she's got a big crab when she's level 30 or something. Maybe 20? I don't really remember.
Yeah, she gets a good mount. She's a wizard with good access to magic.
She's a unique hero. She's also a
unique
ghost.
Hero who's a ghost and very strong. And definitely helps in the early game. The Lore of the Deeps is a relatively strong school. Has good summons and good AoEs. Kind of is one of the better schools for sure. Yeah, so let's start in.
What do you think? C or B? I feel like
not B. No way.
No, you think B. You said a lot of things that you sounded very positive about her when you were talking about her.
No, I said it was really hard. Like taking House Rattle and then taking a look at like her campaign is difficult.
Yeah, but it doesn't mean it's not cool.
I don't think she's that cool.
Right.
I think C is about right.
So next up is Sartosa, who is the worst of these four.
Salt Spite. Her name is Salt Spite.
No, her name is Sartosa.
I think D is right. I think the faction's strong enough that I can't put her an F.
Oh no, she's not an F. Her start location's like the most unique of the pirates because she's in a completely different world than everyone else. She's just in the Empire half of the world.
Her nearby opponents are also relatively soft.
The Southern Realms.
Taking Mar-a-Lago is challenging, but
and then you've got like Ikikfor in Skaven Blight, which is not easy.
I've really actually butted heads with him.
Yeah, you can befriend him, or at least just leave him alone.
Yeah, exactly. And then the Bretonnia to the south often declare on you, but taking Sartosa is really almost impossible.
Sartosa's a good city. The Dwarf Belagar can be annoying. AI Belagar can be annoying.
Yeah, occasionally.
Yeah.
She's not terrible.
She's not a great lord.
Treasure maps and stuff. She's a pretty bad lord. Yeah, like she only gets a small crab as a mount.
She's not a wizard.
Yeah. She also has minus 100 diplomatic relations with Norsca, which has never mattered, but it's there. I think D is right. Easily the worst of the Vampire Coast factions.
Yeah.
Like she fills the role of, if you play Vampire Coast, go play this slightly different faction, but the slightly differentness of the Sartosan units
her
isn't
Sartosan
near
units
interesting enough.
Yeah, they don't bring anything to the table really. They're just not interesting enough.
Yeah.
Also, you always, when you're fighting against it, you're always really confused. You're like, but all their units are dead. Why am I still playing? Oh, got to chase off the Sartosan rabble. Cool. Count Nocturnus. Nephroques Colossus, give them all to me.
I think A.
I think A. I agree with that.
Right.
I think he's solid.
He's definitely the strongest of the Vampire Coast Lords. His start location is
so good.
Fascinating. It gives you a lot of flexibility in which direction you want to go. If you want to go take Ulthuan, you can, but if you don't want to, you can never meet them. Like, you have some quests and stuff that really push you to go to Ulthuan, so it's encouraged. You don't have to. If you want to go and invade Lustria as him, you can. If you want to sail to the desert and take that land, you totally can.
Which is
you start with a Necrospect Colossus.
Which is great.
Colossus is his mount.
Which is great.
His faction effects give a minus recruit duration for Necrospect Colossus, which is also really, really good.
Yeah.
The Necrofax Colossus Doomstack is the strongest Doomstack, period.
Because it fires cannons at you and then it hits you in combat.
Yeah. He is really, really strong. His faction is really good. It's not his start, although it's very flexible. None of the options are actually great. Like, assaulting Ulthuan is hard. Going over to Estalia is awkward because there's a bunch of other people who really want Estalia.
Mm-hmm.
Going to Lustra is awkward because you probably want Luther Harkin on your side at some point, and that's kind of awkward.
I find that the campaign traditionally ends before ever acquiring any of the other lords.
Yeah, I found that too.
So maybe not. Just don't worry about it.
Yeah, I don't know. His starts a little awkward, but he's very, very powerful. Both early game because he has a Colossus, and late game when he gets a lot of Colossus. The boat system is just strong.
I love the boat system. It's so fun.
He's in a good place. I think A is right. I'm happy to play him, and it's a good time.
I agree. I think he's really good. I think both the Tomb King and the Vampire Coast DLC, these Tomb King, the patch has nerfed them a little bit, but they have moved up and down throughout their existence. But I think both these DLCs were very good. Adding a whole new faction that is interesting and unique, and with some cool lords. So, pretty happy. I say
Tomb King's in a bad place right now. They would in a patch ago. They're doing all a tier higher. So.
Yeah. So I assume that we put old Harkon in B then to make it a nice one per rank.
Yeah, I think that's about right. Harkon's unique faction mechanics aren't that exciting. Plus leadership versus Lizardmen and plus 25% magic resist is a thing, I guess.
Yeah, whatever.
Oh, that's his Lord effect, sorry. His faction effect is
Plus 10 movement range.
Nope.
Damn it.
And 6 melee defense for Lords and Heroes, which is... What? What?
Sorry, just quickly, is Nocturnus a wizard? I think he is, right? He's a wizard of the deeps.
I don't think he's deeps.
Harkon isn't a wizard.
No, Harkon isn't. I think Nocturnus Plus was a wizard.
I'm pretty sure Nocturnus is a wizard.
Anyway, yeah, Harkon isn't a wizard. His unique mind thing at least has some interesting campaign decisions. Like his mind is shattered and stuff.
Yeah, because he is
all over the place. Building that's quite interesting and eventually fixes his mind. But mostly his issue is that he has minus 60 diplomatic relations with lizards. Lizards hate him. He hates them.
And he's surrounded by them.
He's in the Lostria Thunderdome, so he's surrounded on all sides by a lot of enemies. And it's rough.
Yeah. He's got Teclis to deal with, there's Velhart, there's like a Skaven faction that sometimes does really well. There's Krogar, there's Tenorwane.
It's about time.
Yeah, it's rough.
It is vampire. Noctis has a weird mix of death and vampires.
Okay.
So he's got Wind of Death, but also Pit of Shades.
Oh my god.
Yeah. And his where he would normally get summon zombies, he gets to summon zombie pirates. So.
Nocturnus is great.
Yeah.
That further enforces him being great. Harkon gets an okay mount. That's Terrorgeist, right?
Yeah, I mean, Terrorgeist is a good mount.
Yeah, pretty good.
But
he's not a great lord, is what I mean.
He's not a great lord. His start location's not great. I think if he's not doing anything unique or interesting. He's just his start units are garbage, like absolute F tier. It's a bloated corpse and a unit of deck droppers.
Yes, we did it.
It's extremely terrible. So I think
I'd rather have a ghostly Bretonnian paladin. If I'm honest.
I probably would. I think.
Is she actually
honestly,
C? Or is Celestia B?
I think that difference comes down to the fact that Harkon has a way better his starting settlement has a faction garrison.
Yeah, the Awakening is
really
building
good. And it's really strong. Whereas Celestia doesn't even start with a province capital.
No.
So yeah, I think that gives Harkon the edge there.
Okay.
I think interesting wise, I would lean Celestia, but
I think I'd agree. Are they both C then? And Harkon's just better than Celestia?
Yeah, I can see that. No, Vampire Coast Vampire Coast good? Their campaign's good.
Nocturnus is good.
I think putting it in B is fine.
Okay.
I'm happy with that. I might.
We'll have to come back to this.
Yeah, no, I'm relatively confident with that.
Okay. Alright, so now we're on to the core Warhammer 2 factions. I notice also, I want to pause quickly and say that currently only one Lord is an S tier out of all these Game 1 and DLC Lords. And I just want to point that out before all the other Tier 1 Lords join them.
And I think we're done with F tier.
Yeah, we're probably also done with F tier. Treacherous Craventail's coming.
It's going to be D.
Alright, what if I argue you into F?
I think he's probably top of D.
Okay, well, rip Cretch. But yeah, so Grom is like a DLC Lord as well, so I just want to point that out quickly. If anyone
some power creep.
Total War is watching. Alright, so we have our newest Skaven boy, one Throt the Unclean. He's got 3 arms, fun voice actor. How do we feel about Throtty Boy?
Yeah.
I like Throtty Boy a lot.
I haven't played a single player campaign of Throt yet. His faction effects are not that exciting. The Clan Molder Flesh Laboratory is powerful. Cool. It's definitely fun to mess around with, although I think it's relatively punishing for a mechanic. You had a lot of hesitation using it because the negatives are really, really bad. And then the correct, the min-maxy way to play it is kind of gross, where you just have an army constantly recruit a unit, give it all the augments I want. Oh, it got unstable? Never mind, I'll try again next turn. And that's
how did they get all the mutagen back for that strategy? Does disbanding it get you every new stun you've ever spent on it back?
No, so you get a bunch of whatchamacallit,
Heroes?
growth juice, and then you get to a point where your growth juice is getting you a lot of, because every time you summon units with the growth juice.
Yeah, so you empty it.
You get a bunch of units. You get loads of units again. So you can get to the point where you can do that pretty effectively.
Okay, all right.
His start location.
It's hard.
It is hard. Though we established you probably don't want to push up those.
Crackerjack's a trick. Kislev's the one that you want to take. But the thing is also, after he kills Kislev, he's going to have become the defense. We haven't got to that point in our campaign yet. But he's going to have to hold off chaos, probably on his own, because no one's going to try and help him.
Yeah.
So he's somehow Throckdown King has become Shield of the World.
I think it's also worth pointing out that the clan Molder units that he heavily encourages you to build are not the strong point of Skaven's roster. Brood Horrors are good. Brood Horrors are Carnosaurs. You know, they are extremely fast-moving, hard-hitting murder machines.
And they're gross. So gross.
And when you give them all the correct Flesh Laboratory upgrades, they are pretty close to unstoppable.
But that's not an early game thing to get.
But that's definitely not an early game thing. No. And I think
Help is a good city. That's like impossible to take, which helps.
That's true. Obscene garrison, faction capital.
Because they aren't particularly strong if you want to fight them. There's probably a campaign also where you could team up with Manfred after killing a bunch of Empire and like own the Empire together.
Tricky.
The Norscans are also a bit of a pain in the ass because they sort of like you but also don't like you. So they're not like willing to like non-aggression pact and trade with you, but they're also not willing to declare war on you.
Yeah,
it's a really hard start position, but I really like the fact that he is encouraging units that you wouldn't necessarily use in Skaven all the time. They're some of my favourite lords, the lords that like buff your faction-wide effects for a certain type of unit. I think they're really sweet. I think he's at least an A, surely.
Yeah, I was looking at the B heroes and thinking, he's stronger than these guys.
He gets Gorich. Gorich is cool.
I think he's one of the weak. Oh, he does have Gorich. That is an excellent point. I think he's one of the weaker A lords here, especially compared to the other Skaven, who are all just going to be sitting in ANS.
Yeah, probably. Well, apart from Tread.
Yeah.
All right, Deathmaster Snitch. So I recently played a campaign with him, and I think he's really fun.
I think.
My conclusion.
I think the snap, the pick a faction and destroy them, is, as a faction mechanic, is strong enough that I think you would struggle to ever not put him in S. So many campaigns come down to there is one very big faction, the Order Tide or whatever, whether it's Dwarves or Empire or whatever, some 50 settlement faction that are going to be a nightmare to deal with.
It's dead. And
it's dead. I know we're not talking about Eye of the Vortex, but in the Eye of the Vortex, this is especially egregious. Where your end campaign goal is to wipe out Malice. I never fought a single battle against him. I just snapped him, and that was really dumb.
Yeah. You have to put some work in though. You have to be level 40 to get to tier 5 for the.
Yeah.
It's not free, but
no. I also think that as a faction effect, plus 200% recruitment cost for non-Eshin units until you've kind of done the faction diplomacy mechanic thing is really interesting. It leads to a lot of armies that you wouldn't like. Armies full of gutter runners and assassins. Like certainly when I played it, I was building the tier 3 assassin building in every single one of my settlements. Literally, not every province, every settlement, to increase the capacity for assassins. Because my army with Stitch was 19 assassins.
Oh, sweet! That's so cool.
And because he buffs the hell out of them, he has just obscene buffs for plus 8 melee attack for embedded heroes in his army, and so you're like all your assassins are obscene.
Gutter runners, sorry, go on. Sorry.
And it also those buildings also increase the capacity for plague priests as well as assassins. Yep. So if you've got 18 cities all of which this building, you can have 18 plague priests and 18 assassins. That's really good. Both of those, both assassins and plague priests, are very strong units to have. I think assassins also get an ability that gives. I think it was plus 2 melee attack to all units in the army. So you 19 of them stacking. They all have plus 50 melee attack or whatever. They couldn't miss. That stack was very fun, very unique.
Well, also your armies I found when I was playing my Snitch campaigns was I was just building like stacks of Gunner Runners with like poison and Night Runners sometimes, and some maybe the Death Runners sometimes as well.
Yeah.
And I found that Walk Grinders suck, but they are an Eshin unit. So
sure.
And I thought that was really fun. And the auto resolve bar is not super favourable to that army, but the battles that you play with them are really fun because they're skirmishy style. Run away over here, engage from behind, throw some whatever they're throwing stars.
Yeah, I think the other it's a little bit of a shame that the reason that his gutter runners are so good, the reason his gutter runners are so good is that they just deal 100% armor piercing damage.
Yeah, they get
gutter runners are not good against dwarves, except here where they're insane against dwarves.
Yeah.
That's okay, sure. But if it gets me to use units I wasn't usually playing a lot of, that is its job done.
I recruit Eshin sorcerers. I never do that.
I still wouldn't do that.
No, but it was for the flavour.
Sure.
And your whole army's normally vanguards, and it's just fun. It's just fun. I really enjoyed it.
It's also a small thing. I rarely have loyalty problems, but Eshin literally don't have loyalty.
Literally don't have it, yeah.
So,
which is good. Also, their start location is in the corner. They are
very strong,
very safe from most things.
It's probably harder than the last time I played, given that Emmerich is over there now.
Also, Grimgor is stronger. So when I was playing, he came and attacked me and started just taking my cities because I was attacking the Dragon Isles at the time.
Okay.
So Grimgor is more of a factor as well, which is cool. I like the fact that he's more of a factor.
But that territory certainly used to be 12 free cities.
Yeah,
it's a little bit bigger than that now, but it's still a very defensible and very strong start location.
Yeah. In game 3, I fear that it probably is not going to be as easy.
Yes.
Because I think they're going to add a lot of area to the north. But yes. So, sounds like Snitch is an S then.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it's awkward to talk about this, probably the best hero to talk about so far, and then to be immediately massively eclipsed.
Yes, by Claw.
This is the strongest hero in the game, the strongest lord in the game by
He's so
large
good.
margin. He has if we talked. I said at the start that we weren't going to consider being too easy a downside, but that is the problem I would have with him. Not only does he have access and obscene buffs for some of the best units in the game, Rattling Guns and Jezzails.
Oh, so good.
He also has Doom Rockets, meaning even battles that are normally completely unwinnable, you can just cheese.
Cheese. I like it. Clever.
His start location is obscenely strong. You have a completely unassailable
capital
12-slot city with a unique building that lets you build Jezzails at tier 3.
Yep.
And his Forbidden Workshop is one of the strongest.
So good.
It's not even I don't think it's one of the most engaging unique mechanics. I rarely felt that I was like, ooh, I wonder how to get more warp fuel. It was more, I can't wait to get more warp fuel, and then my Rattling Guns can be even more obscene. Infinite ammo, you say? Yes.
Also, Rattling Guns and Jezzails are some of the most fun units to play with. They're so satisfying when they get firing. It's just this feels great. It looks great and it sounds great. It's all great.
Rattling Guns in particular requiring relatively challenging line of sight positioning is quite fun. But yeah, he's S tier. I don't think there's too much to say there. I think you would struggle to call if you call anything other than the strongest lord in the game. Yeah. His faction effects are there. It doesn't really matter. Plus research rate and stuff. Yeah, doesn't matter.
You can run a Doom Wheel too, which is cool. Doom Wheels are cool.
Yeah. Arguably not as good as the Doom Flare, but either way.
Well, that's interesting though. It's interesting to have amount choices that actually are which one do I want? Yeah. Instead of just going, I'll just take the last one. Last one's the best one.
Or Cetra. Don't take the last one as Cetra.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's an advantage. Cetra's Chariot is an option. I don't think it's a bad option. I think it's very fast. If you want a quicker Cetra, then go for the Chariot. But his Sphinx is also good. His horse is whatever, but it's also there. And I think that's an advantage. I would like more lords to have that sort of vibe to them, especially if they're going to make you pay all the points for the different mounts anyway.
Yeah.
If all the mounts were like free, then could be even better. But Tretch Craven Tail. I am the worst Skaven Lord.
Tretch is D, not because, and he's being saved from being F'd by this generic power of Skaven.
Yeah.
Tretch himself, as a Lord, is probably worse than a generic Greyseer. He doesn't add powerful unit. He doesn't buff units in a meaningful way. Certainly not units you should be building. Like Stormbowmen are not good backbones for a Skaven army. They're expensive and aren't good. He himself, as a Lord, is garbage. He's not a strong melee fighter. He gets plus 30% ward save, but only when he's losing.
Ugh.
But once he gains that, he stops losing and loses the buff.
Ugh.
So it doesn't function.
His campaign effects aren't real.
His campaign effect, yeah, +4 diplomatic public order whenever a diplomatic treaty is broken. Well, after you've broken one diplomatic treaty, that is the last one you'll get.
Yeah, no one else is ever doing it with you.
And he gives encourage and +3 recruit rank for Stormbowmen. Again, I don't think Stormbowmen are an important part of the Skaven roster, and those buffs aren't even good. Yeah. Like, they're telling you to build Stormbowmen, but you need to tell me with numbers. And those aren't the right ones. Does not the Doom Wheel, which is okay, but it's not the good. Again, I'd rather have some of the good Skaven units. Yeah. His start location is garbage. He doesn't start with the province capital, nor is the land defensible or good. You're surrounded. Like, you're not going to get to confederate anyone anytime soon because you're miles from all the other Skaven factions. The Skaven in general, that's worth pointing out that you are incredibly scattered across the world. It is hard to...
Eshin and Moors are quite close.
Yeah, sure. The rest are very far away.
You're right about the rest.
It's hard to confederate as Skaven, so you really want your starting Lord to actually be very powerful. And Tretch offers none of that.
Luckily for the Skaven
confederated, it's arguable you don't want to put him in. That's an army look.
Yeah. Luckily for Skaven Lords, they've got so much personality in each of their different options that they're one of the the problem with my problem with Tomb Kings and Confederation is that all their lords are generic sword and shield lord. But Skaven have 4 different lord options, right? They have the assassin, the warlock engineer, the Greyseer, and the chieftain. Now I'm not saying they're all the same power level because they aren't. Yeah, warlord, sure. But they're a chieftain, right? It's a bigger chieftain.
Chieftain's the hero, but yeah.
Yeah, sure. But that's 4 interesting lord choices that sort of encourages you different things, because like the assassin buffs night runners and stuff. The Greyseer is like a generic good Skaven lord that is a wizard that has a bell. Bells are cool. The warlock engineer buffs your range units. Not engineer, the warlock master, I think is what it's called.
Yeah.
But that's all super sweet and like a unique thing. Maybe not unique to Skaven anymore, because High Elves recently got their wizard lord, and I imagine the rest of them are coming. But something I think we should mention, because lack of conversion isn't as big a deal as other factions that perhaps care about it.
What else had 4 lord options? I don't know. No, yeah, they had tree men, princes, princesses, and spell shakers.
Cool. I think more factions should be like that. I think that's a much better way of playing it. It's way more, because even if you're not like power gaming, like if you're this lord's the best choice, I'm just having all of him. That's fine, but it also means that if you want to spice things up and go, well, I'm going to take a bit of a weaker lord, but I want to make like a unique army because I think it'd be fun in like battles or something. You can also do that. I think that's really good.
Yeah.
Sometimes I want to take a wizard lord, I guess.
Yeah.
Cool. Are you happy with Tretch?
That's Tretch, yeah.
Yeah. All right, Lord Skrulk. On the Plaguey Boy.
This is an A for me.
He's very strong.
He is the strongest in combat lord of all of these by a reasonable margin. Like, he's stronger than Echiclaw in combat. Law of Plague is one of the better laws. He gets a good mount. His faction effect is one of the most unique ones. The plagues and the fact they have a 100% chance of spreading and the fact they provide positive effects to your armies and your cities is really fun. In his underway, he can build a Grand Pox Cauldron that causes a city to be constantly plagued and spread the plague for the entire game. That's fun too. Put that in it, sir. He makes the building to build plague monks cheaper, which is not that important. Plague monks are not particularly strong, but it is the building you build plague catapults out of, and those are pretty strong.
Wait, is it? Because that's not normal. Normally the plague catapult comes out of the...
that's SFO. God damn it. Yes, you're right. Sorry. I get confused.
It's the one that builds a plague priest, though.
Yeah, and you do want those because you do want plague priests in your armies. Plague priests are very strong, even if the plague monks and plague sense bearers are not particularly strong. Plague sense bearers are okay.
But with Skrulk, they're okay.
Yes, in Skrulk's army for sure.
Yeah.
His start locations are pretty
Difficult.
weird. It's one of the only start locations where you have another legendary lord in your starting province. But luckily, it's Loki, so he just dies. It's not the most defensible start location. Lizards are not particularly good matchup for Skaven until you get to higher tiers. But you're Skaven, you can cheat the tiers, so it's fine. There's also a bunch of legendary lords, also means you get a bunch of traits, which is nice.
Sure.
Yeah, I think Skrulk is a fun campaign. I think the plague mechanic is a little unpredictable, but is a lot of fun to engage with. Yeah, big fan of Skrulk.
He's come a long way since this game came out because he was not.
Oh, for sure.
He was not high when he started. Yeah.
No. The plague rework really helped him.
Yeah, which is great. I'm glad they managed to do it.
And of course the addition of all the good units.
Yeah. All right, Clan Wars, the most generic of all the Skaven clans.
Yeah, and I think for that, like normally the generic lords, I would like default to the highest. You know, Luen and Grimgor. You know, default lords are pretty good, but I think here, B is right. He has basically non-existent faction effect.
Yeah.
He gets some of the percentage from your other lord, some of the XP from your other lords. Is that even a buff?
Well, that also turns off at some point because he'll reach level 40 eventually, and then he'll just start stealing XP from your lords.
He recently gained +2 hero capacity for chieftains.
Yes.
The chieftains aren't good heroes, so who cares?
They're fine. They damage walls. They're okay.
Yeah, he wants Carrick 8 Peaks, but it's not a big deal. Like, unlike the other two Carrick 8 Peaks factions, it's not his main quest. It's just kind of there. Yeah, generic. He's still Skaven. He's probably high up in this B tier.
The other thing with him is his start location isn't even that unique because Eshin's so close.
Yeah.
Like Eshin
and you're still going to be fighting dwarves the whole campaign. Yeah. Dwarves and orcs. Like, I don't know. It's yeah. As a lord, like people have said very frequently that he should have some kind of like he's quick head taker. He should have some kind of head taking trophy mechanic that he's just clearly lacking.
Does he have a unique mechanic at all? No, he's not. He doesn't have a
8 Peaks, I guess.
Sure, but he doesn't have a lab. He doesn't have a recruit
nothing.
Only storm vermin thing.
And I think again for most factions that would be fine. You'd want to play the default experience. Skaven just isn't like that. Skaven, you really like the wackiness of Skaven is so much of their appeal that I think B is like it could even be C just because in comparison to other Skaven he's so but he's got to be 2 tiers above Tretch. Yeah, no, put him B.
It's got to be. We just move Tretch down to his own tree. It's fine.
No,
the Tretch tier. That's what I call it.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Okay. All right. So we have Malus Darkblade, and also his best friend, the demon Tazanzok, or whatever his name is. Zarkin. Yeah, that's the one. Hello.
Malus...
I'm the second worst Dark Elf Lord. Where do I want to go?
Yeah. Malus should be a really unique campaign. And I think it could be, but isn't. Like it's a vastly different start location. You're as far from the others as you could possibly be. This has some serious problems that are somewhat awkward. For example, you can never trade with any faction in the game at any point. Which might as well be a bug at this stage, but it's how it works. Yeah, trade is illegal, and that sucks.
Because elves like trade.
Yeah. The potion mechanic is relatively punishing in a way that isn't particularly fun to engage with.
They have updated it.
Oh really?
I think it was the patch before this one.
Okay, I haven't touched it in that case, but I don't hear good things.
I don't hear good things either.
You start in a military alliance with Nagarons
Useful.
and with the City of Gond, but you usually have to give that away because the campaign can be really difficult to manage on both fronts there. It's rough. He himself buffs a bunch of you're not going to get any confederation. That's just never happening. You don't meet the factions and then they don't like you in any sort of Dark Elves. So you've got to stick with his Lord effects, and his Lord effects are bad. He buffs Cold Ones, Cold One Knights, and Cold One Chariots. These are not good units. Don't build these. He doesn't buff the good units. He doesn't start with great units. He starts with the Bloodrak Producer, who's okay.
Right.
His actual first few turns are especially brutal, all things considered. Like, you don't even start with a single city, awkwardly, and the runaround of just wiping out these Lizardmen always takes 2 more turns. And it is awkward and kind of terrible.
Yeah.
And even then, we're then facing Eshin almost immediately, which is a hard and punishing campaign.
Awkwardly, if you're actually invading the islands from the north, if you're someone invading the islands, it's way easier because the natural formation of the land encouraged you to end at where he starts. Yeah, rather than having so bad.
Yeah. I think D is right for him. He's certainly not F because Dark Elves is too strong for that, and
he's still a Dark Elf, right? Dark Elves are still doing. They have got fun units and satisfying shooting. He's a strong lord. Like, he can go nuts.
Yes, for sure.
Unlike any of these lords in F tier, he can just be insanely powerful. Like, I've played campaigns against him as Snitch, where he's wiped out entire armies of mine because I'm I just can't kill him.
Yeah.
And then my army's
it's also worth pointing out that the ability to summon Black Arts, one of the most interesting things that Dark Elves get to do, he doesn't get to do because his will always spawn in that C section.
Oh, no.
That is unusable. There's also no other ports on that sea settlement, so you can't even. They recently added the ability for Black Arcs can attack settlements. There aren't any settlements for you to attack.
There is a chance that in the third game, when they add extra areas to the map, that this sort of goes away, but maybe
we talk about it in this current state. And, it's in I'm sorry, Malice.
Yeah, so I think that's appropriate. I think Loki might be joining him down here, if I'm honest. Even though his mask is cooler.
Loki's not F.
He's a Dark Elf. What do you think?
Start is miserable. Oh man, his start is so bad, and he doesn't actually he doesn't have any faction effects above Corsairs. It's just a unique skill tree, and he has minus 15 upkeep for them, not buffs, just cheaper. He has one of his unique rituals buffs Cabdress and Corsairs, but his start he doesn't start with the province capital, and the province capital the province he starts in has a faction the Lord Sculpt's garrison is beefy. It is not feasible for you to very quickly take that.
Okay.
His start is very, very difficult. There is not good land for him to expand into. His starting units aren't good. He gets a feral manticore.
But it's feral. That means it's better. It's got a buff. It's got extra word in it.
Yeah, I don't think what he offers is fun or unique gameplay.
Okay.
And I don't think yes, he's Dark Elves, yes, it's significantly stronger than these other factions, but I just think playing him is not do this for challenge mode, it's do this for misery mode.
So I think they could have.
I think it's what F tier is for.
I think they could have made Loki really fun if they had made him
Maybe that does mean Trash should be F. Maybe F. Put Trash down. F is for misery mode, and I think that's appropriate.
Trash does suck. So I think Lucky Fairhawk came out at the same time as the Vampire Coast faction. And yes. I actually think Lucky Fairhawk should have had the Vampire Coast unique shipbuilding thing. Because I think that would have... Because then, say if you didn't want to... If you were getting just beaten up in Austria, just sail away. Just sail to the desert and attack that.
Certainly, one of the things that they have added in some stuff over time. For example, now for every major port he controls, he gets an additional Black Arc. He can have a lot of Black Arcs, and Black Arcs are in a better place than they used to be. They can now attack cities.
Yeah. It's cool.
You could definitely, in theory, play this cool pirate faction thing. In practice, you need economy to support that, and that means you need to hold land, and it's just so hard for you to hold any land.
Yeah. Sorry, Loki. Alright, Crone Helbron. She's one of my favourite lords in the whole game. I really like Crone.
Yeah, I think she's my favourite Dark Elf lord. I don't think she's stronger than Malekith. But she's really fun.
She is really fun.
Like,
she buffs fun units that are like good. She's good.
Yeah.
She was at one point overpowered because she was glitching or something.
Actually broken on release. Yeah. Like the Death-like mechanic is okay. It's like summoning an allied army. I wish it had the war-like mechanic. Obviously, everyone wishes that. No one wants an army that just suicides itself on a stack because it loses the auto-resolve. It's not fun. But she captures more casualties post-combat. She improves Death Hags and Witch Elves, which are great. Are really Sisters of Slaughter in particular. It's fucking great units.
So good.
She buffs them a lot. And they're great.
Did she buff Executioners as well, or is it just the Sisters?
In her army, she has reduced upkeep for them.
Sure.
But I don't think she has any faction-wide buffs for them.
Cool.
But I could be wrong on that. I really like her playstyle. She buffs the right units. I think the when to trigger a Death Knight is a decision. You know, it is a mechanic to engage with, unlike Malice's potion mechanic. There's such similar mechanics, and hers is definitely done better.
It's weird that she came out first, eh?
Sometimes.
So do you think A?
Like, yeah, she can't possibly be S. So yeah,
okay,
she's probably high up in A. But
cool.
Yeah.
Anything else about Crone?
No, I think that's.
Her start location's a bit bland because it's like next to Malekith and Wrath is nearby.
Yeah,
one of the things.
By the way, but certainly she's so close to Malekith and because they're an evil faction, Confederation is challenging. That you often have this like, should I conquer Malekith? I really don't want to conquer Malekith, but he's never going to confederate. Ugh.
Yeah. Also, if you are Malekith, Crone can often become strong enough where he never wants to confederate with you.
That's all. Yeah. Those
really awkward.
Get Forced Confederation or something if you play Dark Elves. Highly recommend. Because it is pretty, like, especially if you're going to start right next to another military. Same with the vampires. All Forced Confederations are vampires.
Yeah.
If you're going to start next to another military lord of your faction as an evil faction, Confederation will be impossible. But also, it's not fun to wipe out and not have access to that lord. So.
Yeah, agreed. All right, so Morathi, High Sorceress of Gain, I think is how she says it. See, it's okay.
She's got a lot of problems.
The Chaos Corruption, it's really irritating.
Chaos Corruption is lame. Her faction effects don't really exist. She has plus 20 diplomatic relations with Dark Elves, but that's not enough to actually get anything. She has her biggest benefit by far is minus 50% upkeep for heroes and minus 50% action cost for heroes.
Mm-hmm.
These are really strong buffs.
Yep.
Hero-based gameplay, similar to Skarsnik, is a lot of fun. I believe there are ways that you can get that to zero upkeep for an action cost for heroes. Certainly, minus 20% action cost for heroes is every hero can get that. Your hero actions get very, very cheap, and at that point, getting them to level 40 is very easy, and that's having level 40 heroes running around is fantastic. That's really all she's got going with her. Her start location is hard. You've got Hexawattle as a brick wall to some extent to the south, and Elithanar as a very spiky wall to the east.
Elithanar is definitely a problem.
And I've been invaded by the Ulthuan High Elves often enough as well. And even, it's a hard start location. You're a long way from your allies.
She isn't a great lord.
She doesn't encourage you to do anything interesting. She's a powerful sorcerer, but she's not a great lord. She's certainly not also a good melee character.
Exactly. She's got half of the good combo.
Her start units are medium. A Hydra's okay, but it's not great.
You have Chaos Rebellions in your lands, like.
Oh god, the Chaos Rebellions are so rough.
Yeah, Chaos Rebellions are way rougher than like random Dark Elf stack. Do you remember the Great Troll Rebellion? of that one campaign we did. It's rough, and I think it's rough in a way that doesn't feel challenging. It feels awkward and like almost broken. Like the Chaos Corruption in particular is just like, this doesn't feel like an intended consequence that I'm having to fight trolls as a rebellion. It's hard and not engaging. So I think C is right. Fair enough. But what about her son, the ever-burned Malekith?
Yeah, this
chilling with Crone,
I
right?
think, yeah. Very similar start locations. He obviously has Nagarond, which is a really powerful city. He has the opposite of Queek, where he gives a percentage of his XP to other lords.
Nice.
So he's quite hard to level up. But actually, long term, that's a really powerful thing to have.
Yeah.
It means long term, it's quite easy to get your faction lead to a high level. It means that you're slower to get regiments renown, but it's not that hard.
You have Nagarond, though.
Yeah, his start location is exceptionally strong, especially for Dark Elves. There's a Skaven faction nearby to you. Skaven make really, really good slaves, like obscenely good. It's often correct to leave the Skaven faction alive and farm them for slaves for the whole fucking game, because it's great. It's very, very, very strong. He doesn't have much else interesting going for him faction-wise. Like, he doesn't have a unique mechanic.
No.
His unique ability is just reduced upkeep for pretty good units. Like, certainly your base is Dreadspears, Bleak Swords, Dark Shards, and Blackguard. Blackguard are good. Doesn't affect Shades, which is going to be most of your army.
Yeah.
But, it certainly helps a lot in the early turns. His army is just 50% off for the early turns.
He's also like a really strong lord with a good mount, because he's a good combat and a wizard.
He's an S tier, certainly an A tier wizard with an S tier melee combatant. So I think he's one of the strongest in combat lords for sure. He's not S because he doesn't have any cool unique going on.
If you finish his campaign tree, you get both Teclis and Tyrion's battle traits.
Sure, his campaign battle gives him 2 traits. Hooray!
Hooray! Yeah, he's a bit generic though, isn't he? He does suffer from being a bit generic. But then he was one of the first Dark Elf lords, so he's not really been changed since.
I don't think any of the Dark Elves really stand out as being like, wow, this is a mechanic that engages me. They're just like,
no, that's fair.
The slave mechanic is one of the most interesting economies. You know, it's probably the second strongest. Dark Elves have the second strongest economy in the game, and it is really good. And it's a mechanic you actually have to, like, slavery is a mechanic you have to work on. You can't turn off taxes, so public order is more difficult than you expect. And getting your slaves to the right place so that you can actually, keep everyone happy. It's all mechanics and it's all interesting. It probably is relatively negative for them, though I haven't played them recently, that low public order now causes penalties.
Yes, maybe.
Factions. But I think all the Dark Elves feel a little generic, but strong, so it's fine.
Yeah, their roster is strong, and they're cool. Like, just that they look good, and they shout random stuff, which is fun. I do miss Malekith's endless shouting though when he was in raid mode. That was fun. Yeah. Oh, those were the days. All right, so we are on to the Lizardmen.
Well, we're starting out strong with the best Lizardmen Lord.
Which one is this one?
Gorok.
This is Gorok. Yes, Gorok is really good.
Gotta be A.
Probably because of his best friend.
Yes, Lord Croak is really the legendary lord here. His faction mechanics are quite strong though. Minus 20% upkeep for Saurus is real. A lot of your armies will have Saurus as a backbone for a decent percentage of the campaign.
Mm-hmm.
Eventually you'll transition into mostly Stegodons, but Saurus are still Saurus are good.
Yeah, Saurus are good.
So long. And plus, one of his unique rights gives Unbreakable to all Saurus, and that's dumb.
Oh yeah, it's so dumb. I hate it.
He's a strong melee fighter with an obscene spellcaster to go with him, just ridiculous. His starting units are non-existent apart from Croak. Additional starting units is always something you look at, and when you see Saurus warriors with shields and skink cohorts, you're like, that is those aren't real. But Lord Croak is of course enough to completely carry those early battles, so it's fine. It's a really strong location. It's incredibly defensible.
Yeah, it's
got
great.
A gold mine, and it's a big 10-slot city.
Yeah,
you're surrounded. There's a lot of enemies nearby, but you're not surrounded because you've actually got some Lizardmen allies and stuff to help you.
And some mountain ranges to keep you safe.
Yeah, you're not nearly as vulnerable as a lot of the Lustria factions feel.
And attacking the bad factions will often make the good factions in the area like you more.
And there's a lot of bad factions.
And there's a lot. If you attack Loki, if you attack the Skaven, which you'll definitely do, like Teklas will be like, I appreciate this. And then Teklas might die at something. But
he doesn't have a unique faction mechanic. Because he was free LC, I believe.
His unique faction mechanic is Lord Croak.
Yeah. But honestly, that's cool enough. So.
Alright, we've got Nakai, who I'm actually going to put in F, I think. I think he's just trash.
Absolutely.
So that thing we said about there being no F tier lords from these Game 2 lords was a lie, apparently.
Nakai is probably the least satisfying Horde faction of all the Horde factions, and that's primarily an economy thing. While the other Horde factions have a raiding and looting economy, right? Chaos, almost all of their income comes from raiding and looting settlements. That's not true of Nakai. Nakai gets a reasonable amount from raiding, but in theory, a lot of his income should come from his ally. The way this actually plays out is that every few turns you're meant to ask them for all of their money, which is just terrible for gameplay. Every turn I have to ask them, how much money are you willing to give me? And then they'll say none, and you'll come back the next turn and ask for 10,000 gold, and they'll say, nope, maybe next turn. That's not a fun gameplay loop at all. And your income is basically at random. Like, it's terrible. The allied faction is meant to solve the problem if you can't capture a bunch of territory as a horde, but it doesn't really solve it because they don't actually hold it very well. Like, you have a ritual that allows you to summon a bunch of defensive, in theory, a defensive army to help. I don't use it properly. Like, it's awkward and kind of terrible, and it suffers all the horde problems that you'd expect. He buffs Croxigors, which are not the exciting units in the Lizardmen roster. They're okay, but they're not great. And his buffs are not like he gives +5 melee defense and minus 10% recruitment cost. How is that all you do? Like,
it's kind of nuts that he came with Marcus.
Yeah,
I think because Tretch and Loki are free LC lords. I mean, the Beastmen DLC was a DLC, so sad times. But Nakai just does not work at all. Also, his start location's horrible. Like,
Albion is rough.
Albion is rough. It's nowhere near anyone that likes you, really. And the horde problems are such a big deal because if you just lose that one battle or you get caught that one time, like he can't hide like the other horde. Beastmen can hide. Chaos Warriors can't hide, but they're Chaos Warriors, so like he doesn't have an underway. Like,
God, yeah.
Again, Chaos, I guess don't have an underway either. But again, they're Chaos Warriors.
Yeah, but you're being led by a shagger. Like.
Yeah, so you're probably alright. Or the man with the squarest cloak.
Yeah, no, Nakai, sad times.
Just trash. Alright. This is Tic-Tac-Toe.
Yeah. So Tic-Tac-Toe is one of the...
Tic-Tac-Toe?
Yeah, Tic-Tac-Toe is one of the stronger...
Free Sea Lords.
stronger take one unit, type, and make it crazy. Like, he's kind of got the Sisters of Twilight vibe, where he goes, this unit you don't really use that much? Pterodons?
Just build
What if they all gain, because it's faction-wide, they gain a unique battle ability, like dropping bombs, an extra use of drop bombs for all Pterodons faction-wide is super cool. Like, what up? And as well as all Skink heroes start with their Pterodon mount, even at level 1. And his unique right, one of the strongest rights imaginable, reset the campaign movement of all armies.
Yeah.
Holy God, does that lead to some crazy turns.
Good.
So yeah, really fun, unique things going on. Not super powerful,
No.
Not, armies of all Pterodons are not nearly as good as his sisters all. Like, it's not actually a doom stack. It's just okay. It's still weaker than the Stegodons, but it's a good kind of mid-game army.
Yeah, it's getting a step along towards those armies.
Yeah, and cool, unique. He moves very, very fucking fast. His campaign movement speed, as in the Lord, is obscene. Mm-hmm. And that kind of mobile gameplay feels really satisfying.
His start location is hard. He's a little bit penned in by... Yeah. not like legendary lords per se, but like Tomb Kings can be a real pain in the arse to deal with if they just sit there like spawning stacks of skeletons. They can be a lot of work.
Yeah.
There's an empty city to the north of him.
Not containing Skaven anymore.
No, because Eshin moved.
Yeah.
And there's Bretonnians nearby too. Though the Bretonnians are more like to be your friends than your enemies if you really want them to be.
Yeah.
So yeah, he's a little. The dwarves are hard work.
It's not a trivial start location. Sudenberg in particular can be a.
Of course, Sudenberg. I forgot about Sudenberg.
But yeah, it's not the strongest, and it's also like his starting province is only 2 Cs, which is great.
Yeah.
But not a trivial start location. But ticking all the right boxes for me.
Yeah, I like him. You think B? I think that's probably fair.
Like, I think he fits really well. Like, Dryker is a really good comparison. Like, he's taking units that are unique, making them fun. As Skarsnik as well. They're not necessarily the strongest thing ever, but there's something you want to be doing, and it's fun and engaging.
I definitely think so. When I'm thinking, should I play another Warhammer 2 campaign? Tic-tac-toe is on my list of maybe I should play tic-tac-toe because he's like
I think honestly, looking at B tier.
Yeah, B tier is that right? Like maybe it's Skarsnik, maybe a bit Marcus Wolfhart.
Gromrindel. No. Yeah, I think because we've kind of done we've done the core gameplay experiences for all these factions for the most part.
Yeah.
I think B is right for us having done that. Whereas C is like, I want something a bit hard, or something a bit challenging.
I'm feeling spicy.
C. D is I want to suffer. I just want to play Ds mostly, and then Fs obviously have never played really. Yeah. So
yeah, I tried some of them. Anyway, Ten or Hen, I think's how you say it.
Yes. This, I think, is... Belagar is certainly the hero I think he's closest to.
Oh, no!
He might be bottom of D.
Yeah.
Like, I think he's probably closer to Malice than he is to Belagar. Like, he's this campaign that's like, imagine Lizardmen, but full of suffering, you know? Oh, yeah.
But instead of having fun, you're miserable, yay!
So the sacrificial offering tree is a huge investment. It takes so much time to get to the top tiers. The rewards are incredibly mediocre.
Isn't it Regiments Renown? I've never actually played him.
So it's Regiments. It's Regiments Renown most of the way up, and then there's a unique thing right at the top that gives all your units an in-battle ability.
So what is it? Regiment? Is it new Regiments Renown, or is it Regiments Renown?
No, instead of Regiments Renown.
Oh my god!
You have to unlock this tree. It sucks.
But it's painful.
One of the other things that as you go along, once you reach tier 3 of his Rite of Sotek, you are at war with all Skaven factions, and they won't engage in diplomacy with you.
Yay!
Like, I don't want that. Oh my god, I don't want that.
Buffs.
Yeah, it's a campaign for the suffering. It encourages you. It's like Skarsnik. It wants you to go. Okay, Soros are off limits. Like Soros and Temple Guard have plus 200% upkeep. They are unusable.
Mm-hmm.
Instead, figure out how to do an infantry made up of Recrested Skinks. I've got a bunch of buffs for Recrested Skinks. Cool. It works well for Teneth Wayne's actual army because he has a lot of buffs for them. It does not work well for secondary armies.
Mm-hmm.
Really want those.
So again, he's another lord that's good to confederate.
Yeah. He's a good lord to confederate for sure. It's mostly his faction effects just being painful and terrible, and his unique mechanic, which should I really think if the final reward for getting to the top of the prophecy was game-shatteringly exciting, it should, once you've got to that top tier, it should be a victory lap. It should be like after Norsca beats Chaos, it should be minus 90% upkeep all units or something. This campaign is now me kicking ass because I am Sotek's chosen, and instead it's not nearly that exciting.
Instead, you're at war with a Skaven. It's like, oh no.
It doesn't feel satisfying. You have to give up a lot to get there, and it feels like you're just taking things away rather than giving me new exciting tools. So I think that's bottom of D2.
Okay, that's fair. Alright, Krokgar.
Start location is also just the same as Itza. So.
Yeah, it's just super. It's in the
But
Lostria Thunderdome, as you said.
Yeah.
which I think is the best name for it because it is definitely an arena in there, isn't it?
Yeah.
Cool.
Krogar might have the most generic faction effects of any lord.
Yes.
Of minus 10% upkeep all units. That's the end. That's all it is.
I've done
It's
it.
his only faction mechanic. It's minus 10% upkeep for all units.
I'm so interesting. Be my friend.
His start location, I think, is the most unique thing for him. He starts
true.
somewhere no one else would ever go. No one else has ever conquered the Kingdom of Beasts.
I mean,
it's just him.
It's a lie, but cool, yeah. Because I've definitely not taken it as leader.
Yeah, but he starts somewhere super unique. Got a great mount. He's a really powerful combat lord.
Yep. So combat lord.
He's not like.
Fun
he's honestly not that crazy compared to the other Lizardmen lords. And his start location is unique, but it's also super linear. Like, there's no choices at all until turn 40 in terms of where you can go, right? Like, your first, 6 provinces have to be the ones you start near, and that's, not exactly dynamic. He's pretty generic Lizardmen faction. I think, honestly, Gorok kind of has generic Lizardmen faction covered.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, Gorok came later, right? So
I think
you have been replaced, Krogar.
C works because he's not miserable to play. He's just a generic experience.
A bit like Azak.
Yeah, I think a bit like Azak. He's a long way from where he would like to be. Like Azag, and pretty generic. I really like him as a character. Like his quests and stuff are cool.
I always struggle to identify a Lizardman because they just rumble that weird. Oh, sure, this guy, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And I'm all like, you want schemes, and that's much more fun.
Yeah, I think Krogar is one that I. He's also, because he starts in such a stupid place, he's so hard to confederate, but I want him in my Lizardmen armies.
Yeah, he's super hard to... Tic-Tac-Toe's actually got the easiest chance of doing it.
He's got plus 20% line of sight.
Yeah. And, he's next to him, sort of.
Yeah.
Yes, Lord Mazdamundi.
Oh, with the most powerful
Big
having
old
just
frog.
read how generic Krogar's faction effects were, I can't believe Hex Battles are worse. He has minus 10 diplomatic relations with all factions.
Is that his faction effect? Nice.
Yeah. Also, minus 50% construction for Star Chamber buildings. You don't want that many Star Chambers.
Which ones? Are the Star Chambers the ones that connect your
No, those are the
together?
ones that let you build slam.
Oh, sure, whatever.
And minus 30% right costs. And the percentage of my costs that are rights is just tiny.
Yeah, it's true.
His start location is interesting. It's actually, Hex Battles are really strong city, gold mine, 10 slots, impossible garrison. Skeggy and the New World Company or whatever are interesting, but quite easy. It's an easy start location, I think is what I'm going to say here. Marathi to the north rarely pushes south.
Yeah.
Marcus
sometimes pushes north.
He's 3 provinces away. You can really get your feet under you before Marcus becomes a problem, in my experience.
Sure. Fine.
Your starting units are good. I think Mazdamundi is he's also a very powerful lord. He has a really good access to a really good selection of spells.
He runs a Stegodon, which is cool.
Yeah, I think B is probably about right. He's not as fun as Tic-Tac-Toe, but it's also easier and a more kind of quintessential Lizardman experience.
Mm-hmm. Cool. All right, on to easy mode. Imric, the least easy mode of the easy modes.
Yeah. His faction, his unique dragon taming thing is pretty cool.
Yeah, it's cool.
Those quest battles and then having unique dragons is fun.
He spawns on a horse, which I actually quite like.
Yeah. He starts with 2, he has probably the strongest additional starting units of any lord. Dragon princes and a sun dragon.
Yeah, that's pretty good. And a fire wizard.
Yes, which if you get incendiary is crazy.
And if it gets level 22, it gets its own dragon.
Yeah. For sure. He's got a lot going for him. The only reason he really struggles is his start location so much.
Yeah, it's pretty bad.
He's in Nagashazir to the west is not good terrain for you. And otherwise you're fighting Eshin and Dwarves. and orcs, and that all kind of sucks.
Yeah.
You know, high elf. So much of the high elf economy is based on trade, and you can't do that for a very long time.
Basically,
you do get you do eventually get an event that lets you confederate Calador, which then allows you to confederate the other high elves, because high elves have trivial confederation for some reason.
Unless Tyrion confederate all of them, then you're like, oh, okay.
That can happen for sure. Yeah, it's an interesting. It's a campaign that feels hard. It's what I wanted Malice's campaign to be. It's take a good faction, put them somewhere completely different, and see how they cope away from their normally very inhabitable start location. I like it. I like what it's doing. It's not easy mode or anything. Like,
I think it's fine.
Yeah.
I think C is probably.
I think it's high C. I think top. I think top of C is about.
We're almost there, so we'll get to that in a second.
Yeah.
His voice acting also at some points is strange.
Sure.
Altharion the Grim, his voice acting is always amazing. This is Altharion, right? Yeah, it's Altharion. I can never tell; they all look the same. Altharion's
interesting because one of the things it does is encourage you to manually. This is probably my biggest complaint: is that you are heavily encouraged to manually fight every single battle with Altharion.
Yeah.
And that's exhausting.
It is exhausting.
Like, even battles that are like you wouldn't take a casualty from auto resolve. You should go into that battle, fight it manually, and resolve your special ability to kidnap their lord, because you get permanent, significant buffs. And that sucks. Because it, you know, especially in co-op, where we auto-resolve a huge percentage of our battles to not drive each other mad, that just wasn't feasible. And so I didn't get to engage with this mechanic very much at all. His unique mechanic, his unique units are cool.
They are cool.
They're not, like... They're not crazy good or anything.
The Griffins on auto-resolve are insane. The auto-resolve thinks they're the greatest unit that ever existed.
That's true. Because it thinks they're 3 heroes.
There's 4 of them.
Well, sure, 4. Ultra unit scale, sure.
That's true.
Yeah, it's... I felt his mechanics, both the dungeon and the unique units, and the building off of Altharion, the main base, were somewhat clunky. They didn't feel good to engage with. They didn't feel challenging, but they didn't feel like I was getting to play with powerful tools either. Clunky is how I felt about Altharion.
Okay.
To the extent that I think I put him in C tier.
Okay, he is a good lord. He's a wizard and a combat character. He's the other character apart from Azag that his magic is limited based on his quest battles.
Oh really? Okay.
He has some level spells before any quest battles, but to get to the higher level you need to have your cloak or something.
Okay, sure. I had forgotten that, but still.
Yeah, I played him fairly recently. He starts with the special lawmaster. Having to defend 2 areas is a pain.
He's got to be B. Right?
Yeah, he's just pretty strong. Also, like, you could just bail on the Badlands if you want to and just play a regular high elf campaign.
Yeah.
Or bail on Ulthwan and just play a Badlands campaign. I think
you'd struggle to lose your Ulthwan territory.
Well, when I played, the Dreadfleet attacked me, but I killed them all. So they also don't ever attack your province capital, so whatever. Yeah, cool. Oh, Elithanar. Boy, do I love Elithanar.
Best of the FLCs. What a unique way to... The most unique of the high elf campaigns. Ulthwan is only orange for you. It's less hospitable, which is really interesting. So even when you do the high elf snowball and confederate it all, it's not great terrain for you. You're not making a fortune off that land, which is really interesting. The unique faction mechanic of getting like assassination quests and unique heroes that can just kill a lord is really fun. Like the number of times that a battle can be turned because it's now being led by a level 1 generic lord rather than Malekith is huge. He also has 10% campaign movement range all armies, which means he's in the A tier.
Yeah, man. He's got that plus other effects. What a guy. He recruits special Shadow Warriors.
Yeah, Shadow Warriors as a unique unit are actually like good. Shadow Walkers, I believe they're called.
He has ambush on his attacks, and he's got
and
he's got underway.
As frustrating as ambush and attacks is, when the AA has it, it's really fun to play with it yourself.
Yeah.
He has underway. Yeah, it's all like he feels different.
His start location is close, but also it does feel really different. It feels very unique.
Yeah. I think really the lesson we can learn from the Lithanar is the way to make a faction fun is to give it a bunch of Skaven mechanics.
I expect Empire with the Icky Claws laboratory. That's what I expect.
Yeah. That would be fun.
It would be fun. I'm going to go my Hunter batteries. Infinite ammo. Yes.
Yeah, oh my god. Yeah, I think a solid A. A really engaging. Probably one of the highest. Higher A. You can't put an S because it's not a cakewalk like we're about to get to. But
but is being a cakewalk a trait for S? Like we just said a bunch of stuff and we were so high on him. Like
no, there's no way he's. But all the people in S also have like fascinating, really engaging like unique faction mechanics as well.
And he doesn't have that. That's fair. He has good faction mechanics, but not necessarily engaging ones.
Yeah.
Okay, we have Alariel, the Ever Queen.
The S tier. She's got a bunch of really cool stuff going on. Not only does she have buffs for the best unit in the we talked about Icky Claw has buffs for Rattling Guns, one of the best units in the game. She buffs Sisters.
Yeah, they're pretty strong.
She can give them 70 melee defense in her army.
It's pretty good.
I'm sorry, what?
That's like 3 times the Flagellant buff ones.
She doesn't even her unique mechanics are actually fairly interesting. Like, at least in theory, they're certainly less interesting in the way they actually play out. Though I haven't played it with the new Chaos Invasions. She gets weaker the stronger Chaos is. Cool. That sounds like a fun mechanic. Chaos, your big enemy. It really plays out like that. It sounds cool.
Yeah.
Her unique, like every city she touches gets a bunch of growth and happiness is cool.
Do you know why she does that? Because in the lore, she can literally like remove corruption from people.
Sweet.
Which is super cool. It's so rare for like the fantasy trope to remove the corruption. Like the idea of corrupting things is quite common, but removing it is, I think, quite fun.
Cleansing, she gets access to 3 additional units. Obviously, they are just reskin units from the Wood Elf roster, but they do look pretty good in her colours. And like they are.
Treemen are interesting.
I really enjoy playing with Treekin. I think they're like. Wood Elves High Elves even do need units to hold the line, and sometimes you don't want them to be spears.
Yeah. Well, the thing with those units as well is they're, unlike the Archived units, they're like more viable into the late game.
Yes, for sure.
I find.
Dryads are about as good as ghouls, but yeah.
Yes, but your opponents in the Dryads are Elves aren't, Dark Elves aren't super armored.
Yeah.
Unlike Dwarves, like Bretonnia Knights, so you can get away with that a little bit more, I think.
She's also one of the best wielders of the Sword of Cain. No, she's a strong combat lord, but also has access to an incredible selection of magic, a mix of high and life, which is just great. Very, very, very strong. She buffs all the right units. I think her faction mechanics are interesting. Like she cares both about how well Chaos is doing, but also how much Wolfband is controlled by High Elves, which gives you this whole kind of, not only do I want to succeed, I want my allies to succeed, which is like a really nice, wholesome vibe that fits so well. Extremely strong. S tier.
S tier for her. All right, Teclis, the Ever Queen.
Actually, one more thing to mention: the influence system for High Elves is not one of their stronger mechanics. But
no.
It's usually way too expensive to use your influence to affect how people feel about each other.
Yeah.
But she gets a big discount on that, and that helps it
cool.
actually be a system that you can engage with, as opposed to I'm stockpiling this in case an event wants some of it.
Sure, I normally use it
to
get High Elves to like me more so they can federate.
That also is also why High Elves are so dumb. Is that works so well.
Yeah.
But she's the best at that. So.
I like how also Empire have the same mechanic for that now, but it doesn't work the same because their confederation works based on their count system. Yeah. Which is fine, I think, but...
Yeah. I mean, High Relations helps with that.
Yes, that's true. Alright, Teclis the Ever Queen. Everyone's the Ever Queen now.
Teclis the Ever Queen.
Recently buffed with Phoenix Mounts.
Yeah, Phoenix Mount helped a lot. faction effects, none of it's super exciting. +5 recruit rank for Lawemasters, Mages, and Archmages. +5 recruit rank on a Lord choice.
Yeah, pretty
right
good.
From the get-go is really strong. Like on turn 1, you can recruit a tier 6 Lord.
Yeah,
that's strong.
That's good.
Especially as an Archmage, that gets them access to the better spells very rapidly. How many do you need? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 is when you get the upper tier spell, so you're 1 level away.
So 1 win.
1. That might not be true. You might need 1 more than that, but still.
You need basic spell, 4 in the tier, then 1 in the middle, then you can get the best spell. So it's 7.
Yeah, and you don't get a tier. You don't get a skill point at level 1 though.
Oh sure. Also, that means you haven't got Room Archer. So.
Sure. Regardless, very rapidly.
Yeah, still a massive jump.
Yeah. He also gets increased diplomatic relationships with all of the good factions: men, high elves, wood elves, lizardmen, and dwarves. Makes diplomacy, which is kind of
it's very
thing.
It's very fitting for Teclis, though. That's Teclis' whole vibe.
Yeah. I think he's got a lot going for him. His start location's not as good as it once was.
Because now it's
the
the
volcanic
Thunderdome.
island. Yeah, the volcanic islands are nice, but the next city you want to take is the horribly corrupted Vampire Coast section, which is pretty rough. Like that city is hard to hold because it has 80% vampiric corruption for the whole campaign. And taking the Vampire Coast, the Awakening, is impossible. Nightmarish.
Fine if there's not an army in it. Difficult if there's an army in it. That's
hard even without though. The garrison's beefy.
Yeah, I know. But you've got a tier 6 Lord for free, so just buy like 5 of those and just...
Your starting units aren't that impressive either. Like you have an eagle and a bolt thrower, 1 unit of Swordsmasters. It's not exciting.
No,
but
right.
I think overall Teclis is like one of the best, definitely S tier spellcasters, fantastic access to different schools. The fact he gets a Phoenix mount means that eventually he becomes decent in melee as well, or at least combat. I think
fly, so that's useful.
Is roughly where I'm going here. Mainly, this is mainly based on the strength of High Elves rather than him individually.
Yeah.
Like High Elves faction that he gets to A tier, he probably would be B if High Elves were more middling.
Fair enough.
And
Teclis.
Teclis
again. You mean Tyrion?
Tyrion, sorry.
Tyrion the Everqueen.
Tyrion is probably like the top of A tier.
Saucy.
I think I would struggle to put him in S because he's just not interesting enough for S. If you want to do the takeover Ulthuan diplomacy high elf gameplay, you should be playing Alariel, and he's just worse at it. He technically gets more. He has +20 diplomatic relations with high elves for some reason, so that that's a little easier. But his faction effects aren't that exciting. As an individual combat lord, he's an unbelievable beast.
Absurd.
But that means you want to confederate him more than you want him as a faction leader. He also has a bunch of really, really powerful faction-wide benefits, but they're all part of his skill trees rather than his faction effects. So yeah, you really want him in your faction. You don't want him necessarily as your leader. I think he is a really good campaign. He is really fun because the High Elf confederate all of Ulthuan, make infinite money because your High Elves gameplay is a good one. It's one of the campaigns I'd probably recommend. This to, if I was going to say who should I play first, I'd either recommend the Empire for more less fantasy based start experience, or I'd say
How dare you? They have religious fanatics which do not exist in the real world. Cannons that do not exist in the real world, my friend. They are fantasy through and through. Have you seen their fantastic plumage and their beautiful ruffles?
Yeah, so Tyrion is probably like the baby's first Warhammer experience.
Warhammer 2 campaign.
There's not enough to keep you in it, to be fascinated by, but the High Elf gameplay is very powerful. His start location is very, very easy. Good times.
Alright, so that is all the laws. There's so many. This took way longer than I thought it would.
Yeah.
But that's okay. So now we'll go through them and shift them into the orders they should be in the tiers, I think.
Yeah.
If you're happy with that,
I think we'll do this relatively quickly.
Shall we start with the bottom and work up, or...?
No, let's start at the top.
Okay, so Ikir first?
Yeah, I think that order is right.
Okay, cool. That was really easy.
Well, there are only 4 of them. It's much harder than this.
That's true.
Oh, look, 16 or so.
So yeah,
yeah.
it gets. Do you think it gets the easiest campaign in the game? Or?
No, but I think he's the
so
best
fun.
mix of super, like, extremely engaging gameplay with very, very, very powerful effects.
Yeah. Agree.
I think the easiest campaign in the game is probably Alariel.
That's fair.
But maybe even Tyrion. But...
Yeah, her effects are worse though. So we said we want Elithanar and these two up the top.
Yeah, I like Sisters above Elithanar, actually. I've been really impressed with Sisters in the recent patch. I think I want Noctilus up a lot. Probably there-ish. I want Vampires down a bit.
Okay, so I'm just going to put other factions up rather than putting factions down. It's easier, I think. So, do we think... So who's after Nocturnus then? Is it Malekith? Is it Crowhalibron? Is it...
Helleron, I can see Helleron in that slot. That makes sense.
One of the Skaven Lords?
Yeah.
Skrulk?
Sure, yeah, I like Skrulk and Throp, I think. Then probably Fey Enchantress. And Wurzag.
The Emperor? Emperor above Wurzag?
No, I have Wurzag above Emperor on this patch.
Because
the Confederation Snowball's so strong.
That's fair. Malekith or a vampire or... I think Gelt's near the bottom. What about Gorok, sorry.
Oh, let's put Gorok above Wurzag, actually. Maybe above Fey Enchantress. Maybe above Skrulk.
Alright.
Yeah, that's about right. Gorok's better than I'm giving you credit for. That's about right.
Sure.
Grimgor.
So now we're from Leon down.
There's a Throp above between Gorst and
Manfred.
other vampire.
Luon's fine there.
Malekith above.
Here?
Yeah.
There?
Above Luen. I like above Luen. Yeah.
And Luon's better than the vampires, you think?
Yes.
Okay. And you're happy with Grimgor here, and Balthasar and then Teclis?
Yeah, I'm pretty happy with
Teclis feels low 80, that's fair.
This is definitely pretty hand wavy, but I'm pretty comfortable with it.
It's a rough approximation.
Yeah.
We've already spent like 2.5 hours talking about them.
Yeah.
Alright, B tier. So who's at the top of B tier, do you think?
Arsenic?
Yeah, I was thinking Skarsnik. And then like...
Wolfric, sorry. Wolfric the Wanderer.
So I thought you said Wolfheart was the bottom of B tier.
Dryker probably is about right.
Dryker, I think Dirty wants to be lower, so
yes.
We'll move him. I think Cetra's a good campaign.
Yeah, we can have Cetra up. That's fine.
Yeah, Cetra. Over a Ponce? Or...
Yeah, over Raponce, then Tic-Tac-Toe.
Yeah, I was thinking that should be quite high. Galloway Kemler. I want this dwarf lower. I want to put... Who's this? Headtaker?
Yeah.
I want to put him lower. I want to put... Athorian higher?
Nah. Let's have Mazda Mundi next. No, sorry, Kemler. Kemler, then Mazda Mundi.
Sure.
Then Harkon.
Then Athorian.
I want Wolfheart below Dirty.
Like that? Do you want Queek below Wolfheart?
No.
Cool. Grommador below Wolfheart?
Grommador below Queek.
Cool.
Just because the dwarf start is so hard.
Yeah. And do you think Dirthu's less than?
No, Dirthu above dwarf.
Cool.
Yeah, that's about right.
Alright, cool. Good job, Skarsnik. Proud of you.
Yeah, that makes sense. So then the bottom of B tier is their start locations are brutal, but their mechanics are fine. All good.
Alright, C tier. You said someone was the highest of C here. Like Imric or something.
Yeah, I think Imric is top of C.
Who's the lowest in C, do you think? Slayer King?
Yeah.
Alright, we've got our markers.
Orion at second lowest, for what it's worth.
Yeah, I agree.
Probably Dwarf is second in C tier, just because
this
he's very similar to Grombadal, so there can't be that much difference between them.
That's fair. I want to put Volkmar lower.
Interesting.
I want to put Slice for higher.
I'll put Katep up.
Yeah, I want to put Katep up too.
I like Isabella, Katep, Diafar.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then Azag.
Azag.
Then Marathi.
And Marathi.
And then that looks good.
Krogar there.
Krogar below Volkmar, I think.
Cool.
That's alright.
I am generic. Fear me. Alright, D tier. Spicy.
Khalida second. I'm really happy with the Dragon over him first.
I think Albert should actually go quite low. I just don't see why you should play him ever.
And he's better than the ones that are actually actively punishing.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good point. Isn't Throg similar?
No, Throg isn't actively punishing. Throg has the Albrecht problem. I think next to Albrecht is about right for him, but above Albrecht. Probably above Sawtooth as well. Let's move Throg up one, and then I'm happy with it.
It's like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Vlad up one over Archeon.
Ooh, get Rex Square Cloak.
Well, I just think
yeah, fair.
Archeon kind of sucks.
It's because his cloak is too square, Matthew. Been through this.
I'm not sure F tier is worth rearranging, but I would have Belagar at the top of it.
Sure. I mean, this is pretty close, right? Like, worst Beastmen Lord, Beastmen, Chaos.
Beastmen are in order, yeah.
Then Tretch is probably worse than... Well, the Cry is probably... That?
Yeah, sure. Move Tretch up one.
Yeah, that's probably this, right?
Move Tretch up another one. Tretch is top of F tier. Okay. Because Skaven is just...
Because Skaven. Yes.
Cool. I think
and we've done it. Hooray! There you go. There's so many legendary lords in this game now. My god.
Yeah.
Which is cool, and I love it. This took way longer than I thought it would, but that's okay.
Yeah, cool.
Ooh, so this is our tier list for single-player multi-vampire campaigns based on fun, competitive ability, and engaging the mechanics.
Yeah, I think a relatively, we didn't do an in-depth. This is I think if we'd done exclusively one, focused very hard on one aspect of their gameplay, we could their start. List. If this was how good is their start location list, this would look very different. Whereas this is a much more general. How do we feel about these lords?
Yeah,
but it meant that there was more to discuss, more aspects to discuss. So.
Yeah. So yeah, I just noticed these are all DLC lords as well. Whoops.
I think that's I do think DLC lords lend themselves to being more mechanically complex. I don't if the first time you're playing Lizardmen, or first time you're playing Skaven, you're given Icky Claw's Workshop. It's a bit much,
Go.
And Grom definitely. Grom's food mechanic is pretty overwhelming if you haven't played Orcs before.
Yeah, that's fair.
Whereas, yeah, I think that's. I'm surprised Sisters have done really well. It's possible that that's just recency bias, but I have really enjoyed the Sisters recently. So.
They're kind of interesting. The first lord that's two lords, which is cool as well.
It's very little mechanical relevance, but yeah,
it's unique. They're always on an eagle or a dragon, and they summon the one they don't have.
Given how weak the Forge of Death mechanic was, they've done very well for themselves.
Yeah,
but to be fair, most of A tier doesn't have only Throt really in A tier has a really strong, unique mechanic.
Skrulk as well, with the plague.
Oh, yes. Skaven. Skaven.
Just Skaven.
Yeah.
Yeah, also...
I think the Empire unique mechanic is really strong these days. And actually the Blood Kisses as well.
I do like the Empire mechanic. I'm a fan. Because they're so fantasy-orientated. They're the best fantasy race.
Yeah, I say that about Forge of Death, but actually the World Root system is just exceptional for them. It's one of the most fun systems.
That's true. It is cool. Being able to play Catch Them All with the trees.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Very fun.
I'm with you. Alright, so if you enjoyed this tier list, make sure to give the video a like, maybe give us a comment, maybe give us a subscribe. Who knows how generous you're feeling today.
And if you've made it to the end of this video,
yeah, well done.
Subscribed.
Congratulations. You get a gold star, sir. But yeah, check out some of the other videos on our channel, and we'll see you soon. Bye.
Bye.